Beneath centuries of stone, ink, and whispers lies a secret the world has almost forgotten. Maps hidden in plain sight, symbols carved into distant chapels, treasures lost to time, yet meticulously protected by an order shrouded in mystery. Could the Knights Templar have sailed across the Atlantic, leaving behind a network of clues, guiding the brave to unimaginable wealth and knowledge? Tonight, we trace their hidden paths, uncover the codes they left behind, and follow the shadows of a legend that refuses to die. Beneath the quiet streets of Paris, if you were to walk slowly, as though listening to a heartbeat beneath the stones, you might feel it the echo of footsteps that vanished centuries ago. They belonged to a brotherhood cloaked in mystery, bound by oaths that promised secrecy above all else. The Knights Templar, the warrior monks of the Crusades, have long fascinated the imagination, not merely for their battles or their rituals, but for the whispers of treasure, maps, and knowledge they carried with them, and sometimes into the shadows of history itself. Imagine the Templars, riding across the sun-baked plains of the Levant, the sand warm beneath their horses' hooves, their white mantles, crossed with red, glimmering in the morning light. They were knights, yes, but also bankers, architects, and scholars. Their fingers traced ink on parchment, creating ledgers and maps as carefully as they wielded their swords. Every line on those parchments carried meaning. Every symbol could hide a secret. And in the quiet of their chambers, by candlelight, some say they plotted more than strategy or devotion. They plotted journeys. Journeys not just across continents, but into realms of knowledge hidden from common eyes. It is said that their treasure was more than gold. Gold can be stolen. Gold can be spent. Gold can disappear in the sands of time. But knowledge written on maps and charts, folded into books and hidden in plain sight, such treasures endure if one knows where to look. Maps drawn not only with geography, but with symbols, riddles, and signs only a brother of the order could understand. The idea of such maps has captured the imagination for centuries. Yet, how much of it is fact, and how much is the beautiful weaving of rumor, myth, and fear? That, perhaps, is the first question we must ask ourselves. In the early 14th century, the Templars were the most powerful men in Christendom. Their strongholds dotted Europe and the Holy Land, stone fortresses standing as testaments to wealth, piety, and power. Yet in 1307, on a chilling October morning, the storm came. King Philip IV of France, his debts weighing heavily upon him, moved against the order. Knights were seized from their beds, their secret codes confiscated, their possessions plundered under torture. Some confessed to crimes both imagined and whispered about. In shadowed corridors, many vanished into dungeons, their fates sealed behind thick, cold stones. And then, as if by the sweep of a shadow, the order itself disappeared, erased from legal memory. But whispers remained, whispers of hidden vaults, treasure buried and mapped, secrets preserved for those clever enough to find them. It is here that curiosity begins to stir. For centuries, men and women have searched, guided by fragments of stories, cryptic mentions in manuscripts, and the occasional sketch of a strange map. Consider, for instance, the accounts of Jacques de Molay, the last Grand Master, speaking softly as he faced the flames. What did he take with him into that fire? What did he entrust to his brothers in the few years before the storm? Some legends claim he whispered the locations of hidden vaults, burying knowledge across Europe. Others say that he dispatched messengers to carry keys and clues, sailing to distant lands where the Templar influence would quietly endure. Maps from that era were rarely straightforward. They were works of art, yes, but also puzzles. A river might bend unnaturally, a hill drawn larger than life, a tree marked where no tree had grown for centuries. Scholars who have studied Templar cartography note patterns, sequences of numbers, letters, and symbols repeated in careful arrangements. Some suggest these were directions, a code, guiding the initiated to secret caches of treasure or documents. Others argue the patterns were purely ceremonial, reflections of their mystical devotion rather than practical guides. And yet, the possibility lingers that among these scrolls and parchments, among the faded ink and intricate designs, lay maps to something that could shift the story of history itself. One cannot explore the Templar treasure maps without encountering the most famous legends. The story of the Paris vaults, for instance, beneath Notre Dame, where some believe gold and sacred relics were hidden before the Order's fall. Imagine descending into a labyrinth, torchlight flickering against walls damp with centuries of forgotten air. The stone smells of earth and rain, of dust and age. Every turn, every archway, seems both familiar and impossible, as though the very architecture itself is hiding a secret it refuses to reveal. It is in these shadows that the mind begins to wander, imagining treasures of unimaginable wealth, relics that were said to glow with divine light, scrolls containing knowledge lost to the ages. Some stories even hint at maps leading beyond Europe. The Templars, after all, were not constrained by the walls of a monastery or the shores of the Mediterranean. Their ships crossed seas. Their envoys traveled to courts and cities from Constantinople to Jerusalem, from Scotland to the Iberian Peninsula. And when the Order fell, many fled. Some legends speak of Templars escaping across the Atlantic, carrying with them cryptic charts that hinted at lands unknown to the common map makers of the time. Could it be that maps survived, tucked into books, hidden beneath floors, carved into stone? Perhaps, perhaps not. And yet the question itself is enough to pull us deeper into the story. As with all mysteries, the line between reality and legend blurs. Consider the Zeno map, created in the late 16th century, showing lands far to the west of Europe in unusual detail. Some have argued it hints at knowledge that predates Columbus, knowledge that might have originated with travelers like the Templars. Others dismiss it as imaginative interpretation, cartographers filling the voids of unexplored space with conjecture. But the mere fact that these maps exist, that they tantalize with hints of something hidden, is enough to keep the story alive. And it is here, at this intersection of fact and speculation, that the Templar treasure maps truly take shape, not necessarily as concrete guides to gold, but as windows into the imagination and perhaps the secret world of a vanished order. To understand the maps, we must also understand the men who made them. The Templars were no ordinary knights. They were scholars, trained in the arts of geometry, astronomy, and mathematics. Some say their knowledge came not only from European traditions, but from the East, brought back from crusades and travels to lands rich with learning. A single map might encode not only directions and locations, but celestial alignments, sacred numbers, even philosophical concepts about the world and the divine. When the Order was suppressed, these minds did not vanish. They carried secrets hidden in plain sight, in libraries, in manuscripts, in simple sketches that spoke more to the trained eye than to the casual observer. And here we arrive at one of the most compelling aspects of the Templar maps, the sense of intentional obscurity. The maps were designed to hide their meaning, to protect what was valuable. A mountain drawn at the wrong scale, a river curving impossibly, a cluster of symbols that might be stars, numbers, or letters. All of this could be a code, a riddle, a guide for those initiated, and a maze for anyone else. It is in these subtleties that the Templars' genius and, perhaps their obsession, reveals itself. To read the maps, one needed patience, knowledge, and imagination. To follow them required faith, or at least a willingness to believe in the unseen. Stories persist of treasure hunters who, centuries later, discovered fragments of Templar maps in old libraries, tucked into books that seemed ordinary, or among ruins long abandoned. They speak of strange symbols, of landmarks that no longer exist, of instructions that could not be fully interpreted. Each discovery brings both hope and frustration. Hope that a secret has survived, and frustration at its incompleteness. The maps tease as much as they guide, offering a glimpse of what might be, rather than what is. Perhaps this is the true legacy of the Templars' hidden treasure maps. They are not merely guides to gold, nor simple instructions to vaults beneath stone. They are puzzles of history, dreams cast in ink, echoes of a world that has vanished but refuses to be forgotten. They challenge us to imagine, to wonder, to question, and as we trace their lines with our eyes, as we follow the curves and symbols, we are, in a sense, walking alongside the Templars themselves, feeling the weight of their secret, sensing the caution with which they hid it, and the hope that one day it might be found. The more we learn about the Order, the more complex the story becomes. It is a story not only of knights and treasure, but of faith, ambition, and human curiosity. They were men of action and men of thought, bound by oaths to protect, and sometimes to conceal. And it is this tension, the visible and the hidden, the known and the secret, that gives the maps their enduring allure. As night falls on the memory of their age, as candlelight flickers across manuscripts and ruins, one cannot help but ask, what is hidden and what is imagined? How much of the Templars' legacy is tangible, and how much lives in the whispers of those who came after, in stories told beside fires, in hushed voices, in the curiosity that keeps us turning pages long after the sun has set? We may never hold the maps themselves or unlock the vaults they point toward, but in the act of imagining, in tracing the paths of nights long gone, we connect with something timeless. The maps are as much about the journey of discovery as they are about the treasure itself. And in that journey, we find not just gold or relics, but a sense of wonder, a touch of mystery, and the quiet thrill of secrets waiting just beyond the reach of sleep. And so, as we step gently into the story of the Templars' hidden treasure maps, let us move slowly, with care, with attention to the faintest of details. Every symbol, every line, every whisper of history may guide us, if only we listen. For in their maps, the Templars left more than directions. They left a trail into mystery, a path for those who dare to follow, and perhaps a dream that reaches beyond time itself. Long after the Templars' fall, the whispers of their maps did not vanish. They lingered, like shadows at the edges of memory, faint and persistent, calling to those willing to listen. Some say the maps were scattered across Europe, hidden in plain sight within monasteries, in the folds of ancient manuscripts, and etched into the stones of chapels and castles. Others hint at more daring journeys, maps carried across oceans, into lands yet unknown, where their meaning might be understood only by those initiated, those who had once worn the white mantle, crossed by a single crimson line. Imagine a quiet chamber, high in the towers of a ruined abbey. Dust floats through shafts of pale sunlight, striking the air like tiny stars suspended in mid-motion. On a simple wooden table lies a manuscript, its edges browned with age, its ink faded yet strangely resilient. Symbols, intricate and delicate, curl across the page. To the casual eye, it appears ornamental, a flourish of a skilled scribe. But to one trained in Templar knowledge, in the language of geometry, numerals, and sacred signs, the page pulses with meaning. Each curve of a line, each placement of a dot, guides the mind, opens a path, suggests a direction, a hidden place yet to be revealed. The first maps we can consider, in this quiet exploration, are not necessarily literal guides to gold, but clues to the Templars' thinking, their journeys, and perhaps the places they valued most. One of the earliest known references comes from an account of a French monk Writing decades after the suppression of the order, he describes a parchment discovered in a private library, showing the lands of Europe as they were known, but with strange marks in the forests of Iberia, in the mountains of Scotland, and along the coastlines of Brittany. These marks were small, yet deliberate, triangles, circles, and stars, sometimes accompanied by letters that do not belong to any alphabet, commonly used. Historians have debated the meaning of these symbols for centuries. Some suggest they indicate hidden holdings, treasure, yes, perhaps, but also archives, relics, even Templar strongpoints still standing, unseen. Others argue the symbols reflect mystical or religious concepts, a map of the soul, rather than of land. But when viewed together, across multiple maps and documents, patterns emerge. Lines connect distant points, triangles recur, sequences of numbers appear where rivers should flow. The suggestion is unmistakable. The Templars encoded more than geography in these maps. They encoded secrets, secrets that might guide one to a hidden path, a concealed location, or a buried treasure. Consider, for a moment, the story of the Rennes-le-Château region in southern France. Long before it became the center of modern treasure legends, there were whispers in the local monasteries of a small Templar stronghold hidden in the hills. Accounts speak of an old scribe, tending to the chapel's records, who found in a chest a map, fragile and yellowed, showing not only the hills and valleys, but also a series of symbols marking certain stones, certain trees, and certain wells. No gold was mentioned outright, but there were references to that which is hidden and instructions that could only be interpreted by one who understood the sacred geometry of the order. Some scholars dismiss these stories as exaggeration, the natural human tendency to weave mystery into memory. Yet the allure persists because the maps, when studied, hint at coherence, at intention. They are not random doodles. The paths connect in ways that suggest knowledge of travel, of landscape, even of astronomy. Lines drawn from one location to another may correspond with solstices, lunar cycles, or the rising of particular stars. To the Templars, the physical and the spiritual were intertwined. Their maps reflect that intertwining. Following them is not merely a journey across hills and forests. It is a journey through layers of knowledge, intuition, and secrecy. One of the most tantalizing maps associated with Templar legend is said to point to the Languedoc region, a place already rich with mystery in the Middle Ages. Here, in a landscape of rolling hills and hidden valleys, the Templars may have stored artifacts, scrolls, or treasure moved from the Holy Land. Travelers speak of stone markers carved subtly, often overlooked by passers-by. Some resemble crosses, some abstract shapes. To the initiated, these markers would guide the way. To others, they were mere ornamentation, blending with the natural landscape. Imagine walking these hills under the pale dawn, feeling the damp earth beneath your feet, and realizing that every stone might carry a hidden meaning, every shadow a secret message waiting for those who know how to read it. Another curious trail leads north into the forests of Scotland. Here, the legends intertwine with the mysteries of Rosslyn Chapel and other medieval structures. Some researchers propose that certain Templar symbols, embedded in stone carvings and stained glass, may reflect map-like knowledge, directions encoded into sacred art, lines traced in the chapel's architecture, angles of walls, the placement of windows and columns. Could these have been guides, subtle and hidden, to locations far beyond the chapel itself? Could a stone carving, unnoticed by centuries of visitors, hold the key to a path leading to forgotten treasure? The imagination dances between the plausible and the impossible, between history and legend. As we consider these possibilities, the journey of these maps did not end in Europe. Accounts, fragmented and elusive, suggest Templar travelers carried knowledge across seas, into the Mediterranean islands, the Iberian Peninsula, and perhaps beyond. Some even hint at early expeditions toward lands that would later be called the Americas. These claims are highly speculative, and yet they persist in the stories that survive, fragments of maps, references in letters, and hints in manuscripts that suggest a far-reaching network of Templar influence. If true, the maps were more than guides to treasure, they were guides to the edges of the known world, to exploration and discovery, to places that few in the medieval period even imagined. And here, the question arises, why would the Templars hide maps at all? The answer may lie in understanding their dual nature. They were warriors and monks, keepers of both the sword and the secret. Their treasures were not merely material, they were intellectual, spiritual, and symbolic. A map could serve as a key, revealing not only where to dig or search, but also how to think, how to interpret signs, how to approach the unknown. By encoding knowledge in maps, the Templars ensured that only those with patience, insight, and understanding could follow. Those who sought merely wealth, without wisdom, would be led astray, perhaps forever lost among forests, hills, and shadows. Some modern treasure hunters have devoted lifetimes to studying these maps. They examine every symbol, every line, every mark, cross-referencing them with historical records and local legends. Occasionally, a clue appears, pointing to a hidden vault, a stone buried under centuries of earth, or a manuscript tucked behind a false wall. Yet the treasure remains elusive. It seems that the Templars anticipated this, that the thrill of the hunt is as much the point as the prize itself. The maps are alive in the sense they continue to guide, to intrigue, and to challenge, even when the gold itself may have vanished long ago. It is said that some maps were never meant to be followed. Literally, a stream drawn in ink may not exist in reality. A mountain may stand as a symbol of faith rather than a physical location. The Templars were sophisticated thinkers, often blending reality and allegory, the earthly and the divine. Their maps, then, are multi-layered. They guide, yes, but they also teach, they provoke thought, they demand reflection. A seeker must approach not only with tools and knowledge, but with patience, intuition, and respect for the subtle art of secrecy. And so, as we trace these first maps, we are drawn not merely to treasure, but to the minds of those who made them. We imagine the Templars hunched over parchment by candlelight, quill in hand, drawing rivers that bend mysteriously, marking hills and valleys with symbols only they could decipher. They created a world within the page, a hidden layer over the visible, a map of the known and the secret. To study it today is to enter that world, to feel the pulse of centuries-old curiosity, and to ask, with quiet wonder, what remains, unseen but present, waiting to be discovered. Even now, fragments of these maps emerge, a triangle drawn in an unexpected place, a star etched in the corner of a manuscript, a set of numbers that repeat in pattern, hinting at longitude and latitude, or perhaps a code only initiates could decode. Each fragment invites us deeper into the Templars' world. Each discovery teases the imagination, whispering the possibility of hidden treasure, of knowledge, of journeys yet untaken. And as we move through these paths, from southern France to northern Scotland, across islands and coasts, we begin to sense the full scope of what the Templars may have intended. The maps are not just about what is visible. They are about what is hidden, what must be sought, what demands attention and patience, what teaches us to look more closely at the world around us, to see beyond the ordinary, to consider the extraordinary. So we continue, step by step, line by line, symbol by symbol, the maps, the markers, the whispers of the Templars' journeys across land and sea all invite us to follow, to wonder, to imagine, and perhaps to discover something more than treasure, the very sense of curiosity and mystery that has preserved the Templars' secret long after their fall. And in that gentle, patient pursuit, we find ourselves, for a moment, walking beside the Knights themselves, tracing their paths, feeling the weight of history, and letting the possibility of hidden maps, hidden paths, and hidden treasures unfold slowly, like a dream that stretches across centuries, calling us ever onward, into the quiet, into the mystery, and into the next chapter of this unfolding story. If we journey through Europe following the whispered trails of the Templars, certain places seem to call out more insistently than others. They are not grand castles or battlefields, but quiet chapels, secluded ruins, and hidden groves where stone and shadow hold secrets older than memory. Among these, Rosslyn Chapel in Scotland is perhaps the most famous, a place where the Templar legacy seems to linger, etched into every arch, every pillar, every carving. Imagine approaching the chapel at dawn. Mist drifts over the fields, curling around the ancient stones. The air smells faintly of wet earth and moss, carrying the subtle scent of centuries. You walk slowly, each step careful, as though afraid to disturb something unseen. The chapel rises before you, delicate and imposing at once, its spires piercing the pale sky. Here, in this intricate stonework, some believe the Templars left more than decoration. They left messages, maps, even clues to hidden treasures that have survived the ages. The carvings are extraordinary, angels with flowing robes, faces filled with serene expression, intertwined with geometric patterns that seem almost too deliberate, too precise. Look closely, and you may notice unusual plants maze, aloe vera sculpted into the stone. These plants, impossible to reconcile with Scotland's climate in the 15th century, suggest knowledge of distant lands, knowledge the Templars may have carried with them. Could these carvings be a map in disguise? Could they encode journeys, places of interest, or even instructions for those who knew how to read them? Beyond Rosslyn, the village of Rennes-le-Château in southern France offers another layer of intrigue. Here, a small, weathered church sits atop a hill, surrounded by twisting roads and dense forests. The story tells of Berenger Saunier, a parish priest in the late 19th century, who discovered mysterious parchments hidden in the church. The documents hinted at treasure, yet the nature of this treasure remains debated. Some say it was gold, some sacred relics, and others argue it was knowledge itself, encoded in symbols and texts. The link to the Templars is tenuous but tantalizing. Scholars and treasure hunters alike have pondered whether the parchments were remnants of Templar maps, preserved and passed down through centuries, awaiting discovery. Consider the journey one might undertake if following these clues from the Scottish Highlands to southern France. The path is not direct. It twists through mountains, forests, and ancient settlements, each location layered with history and legend. The maps, if they existed, were not meant for easy navigation. They required thought, patience, and the ability to interpret symbols that could mean different things to different observers. A stone in Scotland might mirror a tree in France. A cross in a chapel could echo the angles of a distant ruin. The Templars encoded their world into these subtle hints, creating a network of guidance that spans continents, hidden from all but the initiated. And then there's the question of cryptic markers left in plain sight. In Rosslyn Chapel, for instance, some believe the apprentice pillar holds significance beyond artistry. The twisting stone seems deliberate, almost coded, as though a message is hidden in its curves. Legends say the pillar conceals a key, or perhaps a symbol pointing to a secret vault beneath the chapel. Scholars argue it is simply artistic flourish, a demonstration of the stonemason's skill. Yet the human imagination cannot help but wonder if the Templars once influenced the region, if they carried maps and hidden knowledge. Might this pillar, or others like it, contain clues? Might it serve as a marker in a larger, hidden journey? Other sites in Europe share similar mysteries. The Iberian Peninsula, for example, boasts castles and abbeys with architecture that some interpret as Templar symbolism. In Spain and Portugal, crosses, geometric designs, and unexpected patterns appear carved into stone, embedded in floors, and hidden in the arches of chapels. Some researchers suggest these markers align with ancient maps, pointing to locations where treasures were stored or knowledge preserved. The consistency of the symbols, appearing across distant lands, hints at a network, a system of communication, a deliberate placement of signs intended for those who could decipher them. Even small, overlooked details can carry meaning. A carving of a knight on horseback may mark a waypoint. A pattern of vines might indicate the direction to follow. In these subtle markers, the Templars transformed the landscape itself into a living map. Imagine walking through a forest, the sun filtering through the branches, noticing the curve of a stone wall, the placement of a solitary tree, and realizing that each element may guide the initiated along a hidden path. The world becomes a labyrinth, and every detail matters, and yet the maps and symbols are rarely complete. Fragments survive. Here and there a parchment, a sketch, a stone carving. Each piece invites interpretation, speculation, and careful study. The puzzle is never fully solved. Which may have been the Templars' intent? The search itself, the engagement with the clues, mirrors the discipline and patience they valued. To follow the map is not merely to seek treasure. It is to walk in the mindset of the Templars, to think as they thought, and to appreciate the interplay of secrecy, devotion, and ingenuity that defined their order. The mystery extends beyond the European continent. Some believe that, before their dissolution, the Templars sent envoys to distant lands, carrying knowledge and charts far beyond the familiar world. The legends of early voyages hint at maps that could guide adventurers to lands across the sea, territories that would later become the Americas. While direct evidence is scarce, the notion tantalizes. Could the maps in Rosslyn, Rennes-le-Château, or Iberia have been keys to understanding paths across oceans? Could the carvings and symbols have encoded routes and locations that bridged continents? This interplay between fact and legend is central to the Templars' allure. On one hand, we have historical records, abbeys, fortresses, documented voyages, manuscripts. On the other, there are whispers of hidden treasure, cryptic codes, and maps that may never have been intended to be fully understood. The challenge is part of the fascination. Every symbol, every stone, every line on a surviving parchment may hold a story, a clue, or a red herring. To follow them requires patience, imagination, and the willingness to accept uncertainty, to dwell in the space where history and legend overlap. Consider also the human element. Berenger Saunier, centuries after the Templars' fall, reportedly experienced sudden wealth after discovering hidden parchments. Some claim he found gold. Others insist he discovered knowledge, encoded in symbols and language that few could interpret. Rennes-le-Château thus becomes a microcosm of the Templar puzzle. Layers of history, secrecy, and human curiosity intertwined, leaving a trail that invites exploration even today. It is a reminder that the allure of hidden treasure is not merely about wealth, it is about mystery, discovery, and the possibility of uncovering what has been carefully concealed. As we trace these legends, the line between reality and imagination blurs. Rosslyn Chapel, Rennes-le-Château, the Iberian markers, they offer tangible evidence of Templar activity. Yet the hidden meanings remain tantalizingly out of reach. The maps, if they exist in full, may be scattered, encoded, and incomplete. What we see today are fragments, whispers, hints that call to the mind like echoes in a vast cathedral, urging us to listen, to imagine, to interpret. And there is beauty in that uncertainty. The Templars understood it, perhaps better than anyone. The maps, carvings, and symbols challenge the observer to think, to question, and to look more closely. They invite us to step lightly through history, to notice what others have overlooked, to appreciate the subtle genius in blending art, architecture, and cartography into a single, hidden language. We can almost picture the knights themselves centuries ago, moving quietly through these sites. A torch flickers against stone walls, revealing carvings in the dim light. Fingers trace patterns. Quills scratch ink onto parchment. Eyes follow. The curves of rivers and mountains. Every detail is intentional. Every placement carries meaning. And as the Templars moved on, leaving castles, chapels, and crypts behind, they left these markers for the patient, the curious, the devoted. This chapter, like the maps themselves, is a journey, weaving between known history and legend, between stone and shadow, fact and speculation. The Templars' hidden paths remind us that the search is as important as the destination. Every step invites reflection, every observation opens a question, and every symbol sparks imagination. The landscapes of Europe, shaped by centuries of human hands, conceal stories waiting to be read, deciphered, and understood. So, as we linger near the stone pillars of Rosslyn, or walk the hills of southern France, or follow the subtle signs in Iberia, we are not merely observers. We are explorers of the mind, tracing lines drawn by hands long gone, seeking patterns, meanings, and connections. We are participating in a centuries-old dialogue, engaging with secrets that were meant to be found by those patient enough to notice, careful enough to interpret, and brave enough to follow. And even as we leave one site for the next, the sense of anticipation remains. What does each symbol mean? Where might it lead? What has been lost to time, and what remains, waiting to be discovered? These questions, unanswered yet persistent, carry us onward through misty hills, shadowed chapels, and quiet groves. They guide us deeper into the Templars' hidden world, toward treasures both material and intangible, toward maps that chart not only land, but knowledge, secrecy, and imagination. In this way, the legends carved in stone, hidden in manuscripts, and whispered across centuries continue their quiet work. They call us to look closer, to think harder, and to dream. The maps and markers are more than paths to treasure. They are invitations to explore, to wonder, and to connect with a past that, though veiled, still speaks to those willing to listen. And so, as the sun dips low over the hills, casting long shadows across ancient stone, we pause. We have followed the first threads, glimpsed the carvings and parchments, traced the paths through Europe, and yet the journey has only begun. The maps still call, the symbols still intrigue. The hidden treasures of the Templars, whether gold, knowledge, or mystery itself, await further exploration. And as we step into that waiting darkness, into the quiet promise of discovery, we find ourselves asking, once more, what remains unseen? What has been deliberately concealed? And what, if anything, might we uncover if we continue patiently through the shadows of history, following the maps that the Templars left behind? The story of the Templars, though rooted in Europe and the Holy Land, has always carried whispers of journeys beyond the familiar horizon. Imagine, for a moment, the vastness of the Atlantic Ocean, stretching endlessly under the pale light of dawn. Waves rise and fall in a rhythm older than memory. It is here, some say, that the Templars ventured, guided by maps and knowledge hidden from ordinary eyes, seeking lands that would remain unknown to most of Europe for decades, even centuries. The idea is tantalizing. Could men, sworn to secrecy, trained in navigation and strategy, have crossed the great ocean long before the age of Columbus, the records are scarce, tantalizingly indirect. No ship logs survive that definitively prove such voyages. No maps explicitly marked with New World coastlines have been verified. And yet, fragments of evidence, hints in chronicles, and curious artifacts suggest possibilities that have refused to be ignored. Some researchers point to the Zeno map, a chart drawn in the late 16th century, showing lands far west of Europe, depicted with unusual accuracy for the time. Though its origins are debated, the map hints at knowledge of distant shores, islands, and coastlines that few Europeans had seen. Could this knowledge have been passed down from earlier explorers, from the Templars themselves, who traveled not only for conquest but for secret missions, transporting treasure, relics, and knowledge across the seas? The idea seems improbable, yet the tantalizing fragments of evidence leave the imagination adrift on possibilities. Consider the stories of Nova Scotia, a region of rugged coastline and dense forests, where legends claim Templar symbols appear in the landscape. Stones arranged in patterns, mysterious carvings, and subtle alignments with celestial markers have drawn the attention of historians and enthusiasts alike. These features are enigmatic, offering no concrete proof, yet they persist in oral histories and speculative research. Perhaps these markers were intended as waypoints, guiding a hidden path across the Atlantic. Perhaps they were reminders of voyages undertaken, maps disguised in natural formations and enduring stone. And then there's the tantalizing connection to Oak Island, a small island off the coast of Nova Scotia, shrouded in tales of buried treasure. For centuries, explorers have probed its depths, uncovering enigmatic pits, stone structures, and layers of human activity that defy simple explanation. Some theories connect these mysteries to the Templars, suggesting that treasure or knowledge, transported across the ocean, may have been hidden there, carefully concealed beneath the earth. The island itself becomes a living puzzle, a landscape, infused with the allure of secrecy, echoing the careful planning and coded guidance we have seen in European sites. The Atlantic, in the minds of the Templars, may have been not just a barrier but a canvas. Ships, carefully prepared and provisioned, could have carried manuscripts, charts, and small, portable treasures. Navigators trained in celestial observation would have read the stars like an open book, following patterns long practiced in monasteries and fortresses. A single misstep could have meant disaster, yet the persistence of legend suggests that some missions may have succeeded, leaving traces of their presence across distant lands. Evidence of such presence is tantalizing yet elusive. Artifacts found in the Americas, claimed to bear Templar symbols, raise questions about contact long before Columbus. Critics dismiss many of these discoveries as hoaxes or misinterpretations. Yet the persistence of these stories' strange stones, carved crosses, cryptic inscriptions keeps curiosity alive. It is in the gaps, the missing documentation, and the tantalizing hints that the imagination is invited to wander, to consider what might have been possible, to trace the lines that history refuses to clearly mark. The journey of the Templars across the Atlantic would have required not only courage but ingenuity. Consider the instruments of the time: astrolabes, compasses, charts drawn with meticulous care, and knowledge of tides, currents, and celestial cycles. The Templars were trained in mathematics, geometry, and astronomy, skills not limited to warfare, but essential for navigation. It is not beyond the realm of possibility that they could have charted paths across the ocean, following routes that would later become familiar to explorers centuries after their fall. Legends speak of secret missions, carried out under cover of darkness or during times of political upheaval. Gold, manuscripts, sacred relics, all might have been transported in small, unassuming vessels, hidden from prying eyes. Some speculate that the treasures of the temple in Jerusalem, looted during the Crusades, were divided and transported in this way, distributed across Europe and perhaps beyond. The treasure maps we have glimpsed in Europe may have been guides, not only to local sites, but to embarkation points, destinations, and rendezvous points across the seas. One must imagine the voyage itself, a small ship, creaking under wind and wave, sails into the horizon. The navigator reads the stars, the currents, the subtle signs of wind and tide. Every night, the crew studies maps, charts unknown lands, records observations, and maintains secrecy. Every island, every rocky coastline could be a clue, a waypoint, a place to bury, to hide, to mark for those who follow. Across the vast expanse of the Atlantic, the Templars may have left not just treasure, but signs, traces of their presence that whisper across time, subtle but persistent. And what of the maps themselves, if fragments survived in Europe? Could some have crossed the ocean with these voyagers, perhaps encoded in parchments, folded carefully to hide their meaning, or disguised in works of art, geometry, or architecture aboard the ships? The maps may have been layered with multiple meanings, a navigation guide, a symbolic representation of sacred knowledge, a record of places of power or importance. To read them would require training, insight, and intuition, echoing the very discipline and secrecy that define the order. Some theories suggest connections to indigenous sites in the Americas, locations aligned with stars, rivers, or mountains. Could these be coincidences, or could they reflect knowledge brought from the Old World? While definitive proof remains elusive, the patterns are intriguing. Lines connecting landmarks, symbols embedded in stone, and oral traditions hint at interactions that mainstream history has largely overlooked. It is here, in the interplay of legend, artifact, and theory, that the Templars' maps take on a mystical dimension, bridging continents, eras, and ideas. The idea of pre-Columbian Templar voyages has fascinated scholars, adventurers, and storytellers alike. Even skeptics acknowledge that the combination of navigational skill, maritime knowledge, and European interest in distant lands makes such journeys plausible not as a certainty, but as a tantalizing possibility. And in the human imagination, plausibility often becomes the first step toward wonder. The Atlantic becomes a theater of mystery, where ships, maps, and secrecy intersect, leaving traces that invite exploration and speculation. As we trace these potential paths, it is essential to remember the nature of the Templars themselves. They were secretive, disciplined, and strategic. Their treasure was often hidden not only physically but intellectually. Maps, symbols, and markers were intended to be puzzles, to conceal as much as they revealed. The idea that they might have crossed oceans, leaving subtle signs in the New World, fits the pattern, a blend of ambition, secrecy, and ingenuity, designed to endure beyond their immediate time and reach. Even the smallest details can spark curiosity. A stone alignment on an Atlantic island, a strange carving near a river, a local legend of a vanished ship all become part of the tapestry. The mind begins to connect dots across vast distances and centuries, weaving a network of possibility. Each fragment hints at something larger, something deliberately concealed yet persistent, echoing the careful planning and long-term vision of the Templars themselves. And in imagining these voyages, we also imagine the human experience, the fear and hope of crossing unknown waters, the trust required among crew and leaders, the constant attention to navigation, weather, and the hidden dangers of uncharted lands. Every journey would have been a test of skill, endurance, and secrecy. Every arrival in a distant place would have been carefully calculated, with the intention of hiding, preserving, or establishing new points of influence. Thus, the Templars' hidden treasure maps may not only guide to European sites, but hint at an Atlantic network, a system of secret locations spanning continents. Whether these maps are literal, symbolic, or both, they continue to inspire exploration, study, and imagination. The very act of considering them invites a deeper engagement with history, mystery, and the human drive to seek the unknown. And so, as we drift across the Atlantic in thought, tracing the imagined courses of Templar vessels, feeling the rhythm of waves beneath invisible sails, we confront the intersection of history and possibility. The maps, whether surviving in fragments or lost entirely, serve as reminders that the world is larger, older, and more mysterious than we often acknowledge. They call us to notice, to question, to explore, and to wonder. Even now, the stories endure, from Nova Scotia to Oak Island, from hidden carvings to cryptic parchments. The whispers of Templar voyages linger, and though proof may remain elusive, the imagination fills the gaps, constructing paths, journeys, and secrets that stretch across centuries and oceans. As we pause, letting the rhythm of the imagined Atlantic settle in our minds, we are reminded that the Templars' legacy is not simply about treasure, maps, or voyages. It is about curiosity, patience, and the human desire to uncover what is hidden. It is about following the lines, symbols, and clues, and allowing the mystery to guide us, patiently, gently, across time and space, toward the next layer of the story waiting just beyond the horizon, calling us to continue. The Templars were known as warriors, monks, and guardians of secrets. But what, exactly, were the treasures they sought to protect? It is tempting to imagine chests overflowing with gold, silver, and gems, but the reality or the legend is far more intricate. Some treasures were material, yes, yet others were spiritual, symbolic, or intellectual. They were encoded in objects, maps, and artifacts, each carrying layers of meaning, each demanding careful interpretation. Imagine standing in a dimly lit chamber within a Templar stronghold. The air is cool, tinged with the scent of stone and candle wax. A chest sits in the corner, small, unassuming, yet impossibly heavy. Inside, you find not only coins and jewelry, but also scrolls of parchment, etched with strange symbols, diagrams of geometry, and faint sketches of distant lands. Perhaps a reliquary lies nestled among them, containing a fragment of history so sacred that it must remain hidden from the uninitiated. Every artifact speaks of intention, secrecy, and purpose. Among the most famous treasures attributed to the Templars is the Holy Grail. Whether viewed as a literal chalice or a symbolic vessel, its legend has persisted for centuries. The Grail represents purity, divine knowledge, and the intersection of the sacred and earthly realms. Some scholars propose that the Templars, having guarded the Grail in Jerusalem, transported it to Europe, concealing it within abbeys, chapels, or underground vaults. Others suggest that the Grail was not a physical object at all, but knowledge encoded in manuscripts, a treasure of the mind rather than the body. In either interpretation, it was hidden, protected, and guided by maps, symbols, and secrecy. Another treasure often associated with the Templars is the Ark of the Covenant, the biblical chest of unparalleled significance, rumored to contain divine power, may have passed into their care during the Crusades. Legends tell of its careful concealment, possibly beneath stone floors, in secret vaults, or even transported across seas. Whether the Ark ever truly fell into Templar hands remains a mystery, yet the stories endure, entwining history, faith, and imagination. Its very possibility casts a shadow of fascination over the Order's travels and treasures. We must, also, consider relics, smaller but no less significant treasures, fragments of the true cross, sacred oils, or scrolls containing knowledge considered too dangerous or powerful to be revealed. Each was catalogued, preserved, and moved with meticulous care. Maps may have guided their transport, encoding routes, storage locations, and instructions for the initiated. To the Templars, these objects were not mere possessions, they were living symbols, conduits of knowledge and devotion, treasures that demanded both respect and secrecy. Imagine, for a moment, the legend of a Templar jewel, rumored to be infused with esoteric significance, small, unassuming, yet carrying a pattern or engraving decipherable only to those trained in the Order's secret language. Perhaps it contained a map within its design, coordinates for hidden chambers or secret vaults, or a coded key to unlock other treasures. The jewel itself becomes a nexus of mystery, a point where material and symbolic value merge, and where the very act of looking closely may reveal a hidden narrative. Some accounts speak of Templar coins and medallions, not merely currency but tools of transmission, bearing marks, symbols, and inscriptions pointing to sacred knowledge found in abbeys, castles, or ancient ruins. These objects may have guided initiates along hidden paths, marking boundaries or indicating directions, much like the maps we explored earlier. Even today, such artifacts provoke curiosity, suggesting a network of encoded guidance that survives in fragments scattered across Europe and beyond. Oak Island, again, becomes a focal point in these stories. Excavations have uncovered layers of structures, pits, and artifacts that some link to Templar activity. Could some of the treasures hidden there be not gold, but sacred relics transported across the Atlantic, manuscripts, reliquaries, or symbolic objects, protected for centuries under earth and stone, waiting for those capable of understanding their meaning? The allure is irresistible. Beneath the surface, the physical and mystical converge, leaving clues for the patient and imaginative observer. Even more subtle treasures exist in the form of knowledge itself. The Templars were scholars, as well as warriors, studying mathematics, astronomy, and architecture. Maps, coded manuscripts, and hidden diagrams were themselves treasures, keys to understanding the world, the stars, and sacred geometry. To find these treasures requires study, patience, and interpretation. They are not easily grasped, but for those who can unlock their meaning, the rewards may surpass gold. Touching the spiritual and intellectual dimensions that the Order held sacred, artifacts also appear in more public places, disguised as everyday objects. A chalice in a chapel, a carving on a pillar, or a design etched in a window may all carry hidden significance. They are markers, clues, and teaching tools, guiding the observant mind toward understanding. The genius of the Templars was their ability to blend the ordinary with the extraordinary, embedding meaning in plain sight, leaving traces that endure even when physical documents are lost. And then there are the stories of treasure ships, vessels carrying the spoils of Jerusalem and the Holy Land, laden with gold, relics, and manuscripts. Some speculate these ships sailed along Mediterranean coasts, while others propose daring voyages across the Atlantic. The treasures were never merely material, they were imbued with meaning, encoded with secrets, and transported with care. Maps guided their journeys, markers indicated safe harbors, and symbols warned of dangers or rival seekers. The legend of Templar treasure thus extends not only through Europe but across oceans, carried by those sworn to secrecy. One cannot overlook the possibility of buried treasure in more mundane forms. Stone chests hidden beneath floors, concealed in forests, or disguised within ruins, may contain smaller relics or manuscripts. The Templars' skill in cryptography, coding, and symbolism ensured that even if a treasure were discovered, its meaning might remain obscure. Without the proper understanding, an object's significance could elude centuries of observers, leaving only mystery in its wake. Even today, these treasures invite exploration and speculation. Scholars, treasure hunters, and enthusiasts study manuscripts, architectural details, and oral traditions, searching for connections, decoding symbols, and interpreting fragments. Each discovery, whether a small relic or a tantalizing clue, adds to the tapestry, suggesting a vast network of hidden knowledge and protected wealth that transcends time. The pursuit itself becomes a journey, echoing the Templars' emphasis on patience, observation, and understanding. Consider also the human fascination with discovery. The allure of Templar treasures is not simply wealth, it is the thrill of uncovering what has been hidden, of participating in a centuries-long dialogue with history, secrecy, and imagination. Every artifact, map, or relic becomes a doorway into a world shaped by devotion, strategy, and ingenuity. Each object challenges the observer to look deeper, to think, to connect, and to wonder. Even the most modest artifacts, when viewed through this lens, become treasures beyond their material value. A manuscript fragment may contain the seeds of a larger puzzle. A carved stone may encode directions, a story, or a symbol of faith. A chalice or reliquary may conceal a message or a map. In these hidden meanings, the Templars' treasures endure, inviting careful study and patient reflection. And so, the legends of Templar treasures, whether gold, relics, manuscripts, or symbolic objects, continue to captivate. They remind us that the past is never entirely lost, that secrets may survive in stone, ink, or earth. They call us to observe, to interpret, and to follow the traces left by an order dedicated to secrecy, knowledge, and devotion. In imagining these treasures, we connect with the Templars' world. We sense the care with which they guarded objects, the discipline with which they preserved knowledge, and the skill with which they encoded guidance into maps, symbols, and artifacts. To explore their legacy is to participate in a centuries-long game of observation, interpretation, and discovery, where patience and curiosity are rewarded, and where the mysteries themselves are part of the treasure. As we leave these chambers, study these maps, and examine these artifacts, we are drawn deeper into the Templars' hidden world. Each fragment, each story, each object offers a glimpse into a past where secrecy, devotion, and ingenuity intertwined, creating treasures that transcend the ordinary, speaking not only to the wealth of a knight or a monastery, but to the enduring human desire to explore, understand, and uncover. And as the candlelight fades, leaving only shadows dancing across ancient stone, we realize that the search for Templar treasures is not merely a quest for gold or relics. It is a journey through time, memory, and imagination. It is a journey that continues patiently, inviting us to follow the maps, decode the symbols, and discover, at last, treasures that may be more profound than any material wealth. Treasures that endure in mystery, story, and curiosity. The Templars were more than warriors and guardians. They were keepers of knowledge, masters of symbols, and students of hidden patterns. Across Europe, their influence is often visible in stone, yet only to those who know how to see. Sacred geometry, celestial alignment, and encoded architecture form a language in itself, a map not of land but of understanding. Imagine walking through a Templar chapel at dusk. The light filters through stained glass, painting the floor with colors that shift as the sun moves. The arches curve with mathematical precision, the columns rise in harmonious proportion, and the angles of the walls seem almost to point the way. To the casual eye, it is beautiful craftsmanship. To the trained observer, it is a deliberate message, a code inscribed in stone, waiting to be read. Sacred geometry, the study of shapes, ratios, and harmonies believed to reflect divine order, was central to Templar architecture. Circles, triangles, and squares appear repeatedly, often hidden in plain sight. Some researchers argue that these patterns were not merely decorative but functional, encoding knowledge about the cosmos, the movement of stars, and the structure of the world itself. A carefully placed circle may align with a solstice sunrise. A triangle may point to a hidden chamber, and a spiral may indicate a journey or path. Rosslyn Chapel, once again, offers a wealth of examples. Its intricate carvings are filled with geometric forms, interlocking stars, hexagons, and rosettes. Some argue these are reminders of the mathematical sophistication of the order, evidence of an understanding that blends art, architecture, and knowledge. Others see a map encoded in these forms, guiding those who can interpret their meaning. Toward hidden treasures or sacred sites, the chapel itself becomes a living manuscript, a three-dimensional text carved in stone. Beyond geometry, celestial alignment played a key role. Some Templar sites are aligned with the rising sun on specific days of the year, with the positions of stars, or with lunar cycles. Such precision suggests careful observation and deep understanding of astronomy. These alignments may have served multiple purposes, marking sacred dates, guiding pilgrims, or even encoding maps and instructions for hidden treasures. The placement of stones, pillars, and arches could mirror constellations, rivers, or other natural features, creating a layered map that integrates land, sky, and knowledge. Consider the possibility of a Templar map that is not drawn on parchment, but embedded in the world itself. Hills, rivers, forests, and stones may correspond to the symbols carved in chapels. A circle etched in stone could represent a hilltop. A line of carved stars could mirror the path of a river. To follow such a map requires observation, intuition, and patience. It is not a map for the hurried traveler, but for those willing to move slowly, to notice details, to connect the dots across space and time. Iberian sites, too, reveal hidden geometry and alignment. Some castles and abbeys contain unexpected patterns in floors, ceilings, and arches. Some researchers propose that these alignments correspond to celestial events, marking solstices or equinoxes. Others argue they point toward sacred relics or secret chambers. The consistency across sites in Spain, Portugal, and France suggests that these were not isolated choices, but part of a deliberate system, a coded language of shape and proportion that transcends generations. Even smaller details carry significance. A carved vine spiraling around a column, a small star etched into a floor tile, or the angle of a doorway all may have been intentionally placed to convey information. These markers could serve as coordinates, reminders, or warnings, guiding the initiated toward hidden knowledge or treasures. In this way, Templar architecture functions as a map in 3 dimensions, a layered system of communication where the physical, symbolic, and spiritual converge. It is tempting to imagine the Templars themselves, kneeling with compass and square, planning layouts with meticulous care, every angle measured, every proportion calculated, every symbol imbued with meaning. Perhaps a hidden chamber lies beneath a chapel floor, aligned precisely with the stars on a specific date, accessible only to those who understand the code. Perhaps a spiral carving points to a hill, a river, or a distant ruin. The language of geometry is both subtle and powerful, a method of encoding knowledge that survives centuries of change. Some scholars suggest that sacred geometry was not limited to European sites. If the Templars ventured across the Atlantic, as some theories propose, they may have embedded similar principles in distant landscapes. Mounds, stone alignments, or markers could reflect the same geometric language, hinting at paths, locations, or hidden treasures. The principles of proportion, alignment, and celestial observation could transcend continents, linking the old world and the new in ways that ordinary maps could not. This interplay of geometry and landscape suggests that the Templars were not merely hiding treasures. but creating experiences, guiding the mind and spirit of the seeker. To move through these spaces is to participate in the code itself, to trace lines, observe angles, and interpret symbols. It is a journey of perception, requiring attentiveness and curiosity. The treasure is not only material, but intellectual and spiritual, hidden in the way the world is shaped and observed. The layering of symbols, geometry, and alignment also reflects the Templars' understanding of secrecy. True knowledge, they may have believed, should not be obvious. It should require study, thought, and insight. Maps embedded in stone or landscape were safe from prying eyes, because only those who understood the principles, who were trained to see, could read them. In this way, architecture itself became a safeguard, a method of preserving sacred or valuable knowledge across time. Even the repetition of patterns served as a mnemonic device. Circles within triangles, stars within rosettes, spirals within squares all may have functioned as reminders, teaching tools, or encoded directions. The observer, moving from site to site, could piece together a broader understanding, connecting locations, symbols, and alignments across the landscape. The Templars' treasures were thus multidimensional, physical objects, encoded knowledge, and maps embedded in geometry and the world itself. Consider, too, the human experience of discovery. Walking slowly through a Templar site, noticing a shift in alignment, the play of light on a carved stone, or a subtle spiral in a column, is to engage in a centuries-old dialogue. Each observation builds upon the previous, revealing layers of meaning that cannot be grasped all at once. The journey through geometry and alignment becomes part of the treasure, as valuable as any material object hidden beneath stone or soil. Even modern researchers and enthusiasts feel this pull. They measure angles, trace patterns, and seek correspondences with stars, rivers, and hills. Every discovery, every alignment noticed, every geometric form analyzed adds to the tapestry of understanding, suggesting a vast, interconnected system of hidden knowledge. The thrill lies not only in finding physical artifacts, but in perceiving the deliberate intelligence that shaped these sites. And yet, mystery remains. No code has been fully deciphered. No treasure, in its entirety, has been located. The patterns persist, enduring across centuries, challenging observers to think, to notice, and to interpret. The Templars' language of geometry, alignment, and symbol continues to call to the curious, inviting exploration without the certainty of immediate reward. In this way, sacred geometry becomes a map not merely of the land, but of thought itself. Each line, angle, and curve is a lesson in observation, patience, and insight. The seeker must move carefully, consider context, and connect what may initially seem unrelated. The process itself mirrors the discipline of the order, study, contemplation, and deliberate action guided by understanding and devotion. And so, as we trace arches, columns, and carved patterns across Europe and perhaps even across the Atlantic, we participate in a hidden journey. The Templars' maps, encoded in stone and sky, guide us not only to treasures but to understanding, offering a glimpse into a world where mathematics, architecture, astronomy, and secrecy converge. Each site, each alignment, each geometric form becomes a puzzle piece in a centuries-old system of knowledge. Even the quietest observation can reveal something profound. The way sunlight strikes a floor at dawn, the subtle angle of a spire against the horizon, the placement of stars in carved patterns all offer insight into a mind attuned to both earthly and celestial order. The Templars' world is thus layered, complex, and endlessly fascinating, inviting the patient observer to see beyond what is immediately visible. And so, as we leave Rosslyn Chapel, walk the hills of Iberia, or trace possible alignments in distant landscapes, we carry with us a growing awareness. Geometry, celestial observation, and symbolic design were not mere decoration, they were instruments of guidance, preservation, and communication. They formed a map as real as any charted on parchment, yet hidden in plain sight, awaiting those who can perceive it. In this chapter, we glimpse the genius of the Templars, their ability to blend art, mathematics, and secrecy, their mastery of architecture as communication, their creation of layered maps that guide, teach, and protect. The treasures, whether physical or symbolic, are inseparable from the structures and landscapes that house them. The journey through geometry, alignment, and symbol is itself a path to understanding, a continuation of the centuries-old pursuit of knowledge, devotion, and hidden treasure. And as we step back from arches, columns, and carved patterns, the silent language of geometry lingers, calling us to notice, to think, and to wonder. The Templars' maps are not only on parchment or buried beneath stone. They are in the world around us, in proportion, alignment, and light. To read them is to follow a path that begins in stone, stretches across land and sky, and continues, patiently, through the imagination. The Templars were masters not only of warfare and architecture, but of secrecy. Throughout history, they left traces of knowledge encoded in maps, manuscripts, and symbols, a language designed to preserve meaning while obscuring it from the uninitiated. These signs, subtle yet deliberate, hint at hidden treasures, secret roots, and sacred knowledge. To understand them requires patience, intuition, and a willingness to look beyond the obvious. Imagine a parchment, yellowed with age, its edges frayed from centuries of handling. On it, lines of text are interspersed with curious symbols, circles divided into segments, triangles overlapping squares, stars connected by delicate lines. Perhaps there are numbers, letters, or shapes arranged in patterns that defy immediate understanding. To the casual observer, it is an old manuscript. To the trained eye, it is a map, a code, and a story all at once. Many Templar documents are deliberately ambiguous, blending fact with allegory. Symbols with instructions. A star drawn in a corner might indicate a city, a landmark, or a celestial position. A sequence of numbers could represent distances, dates, or instructions for navigating rivers, forests, or mountains. Even a seemingly simple diagram may encode multiple layers of meaning, readable only by those who understand the Templars' symbolic language. Consider the so-called hooked X, a symbol appearing in connection with some purported Templar treasures in the New World. It resembles a simple mark, yet researchers speculated in code's directions, lineage, or alignment. Found on stones, manuscripts, or carved into wood, the hooked X may point to a location, a secret instruction, or a ceremonial significance. Its simplicity belies complexity, requiring careful observation to interpret. Other manuscripts contain coded writings, letters, and numbers arranged in sequences that seem meaningless until patterns are recognized. Some codes employ substitution ciphers, where one symbol represents another, masking names, places, or objects. Others layer multiple ciphers, creating a challenge that might take generations to unravel. The Templars, trained in mathematics, cryptography, and observation, were uniquely capable of producing such sophisticated messages. One intriguing example comes from the archives of France, where faintly written notes in a Templar codex describe paths across waters and hidden chambers beneath stones. No map accompanies these words, only symbols, letters, and diagrams. Researchers have debated their meaning for centuries. Could they refer to the Atlantic voyages, to sites like Oak Island, or to European locations? The ambiguity is deliberate, a protective measure ensuring that knowledge survives. Yet only those prepared to decode it can fully understand. In addition to symbols on parchment, the Templars often embedded codes in architecture. Columns, arches, and floors may carry letters, numbers or symbolic arrangements forming ciphers. Even a spiral carved into stone could be part of a complex instruction, marking a direction, distance, or ritual procedure. Maps may have been combined with physical markers, creating a network of guidance that blends written, visual, and spatial. Codes. Rosslyn Chapel, again, offers a remarkable example. Its carvings contain stars, geometric forms, and strange figures that some scholars suggest encode messages. Patterns repeat in unexpected ways, aligning with other carvings or celestial events. These repetitions may act as keys to understanding, hints that direct the observer's attention to connections across sites. The chapel becomes not only a place of worship, but a repository of hidden knowledge. A layered manuscript in stone. Even the choice of language can encode secrecy. Latin, French, and Occitan appear in Templar writings, sometimes interspersed with obscure words, abbreviations, or invented symbols. A single word might carry multiple meanings: a city, a person, or a spiritual principle. Numbers may be symbolic, representing dates, measurements, or sacred ideas. The combination of language, symbol, and geometry produces a text that is simultaneously practical and mystical. One of the most compelling aspects of Templar codes is their consistency. Across manuscripts, maps, and architectural sites, certain symbols, shapes, and arrangements recur. Circles divided into segments, intersecting triangles, and star motifs appear in France, Iberia, and possibly across the Atlantic. This suggests a system, a shared language of secrecy, allowing knowledge to be preserved and transmitted over vast distances. Even as the order itself faced persecution, some researchers believe that these symbols encode more than locations. They may preserve philosophical or spiritual teachings. The Templars were deeply influenced by religious, mystical, and esoteric traditions, blending Christian theology with knowledge from the East. Their maps and manuscripts may encode principles of harmony, divine proportion, or moral instruction, creating a treasure that is both material and intellectual. Consider the idea of a map hidden in plain sight, where ordinary features, rivers, hills, forests correspond to symbols in a manuscript. A spiral on parchment may reflect a spiral in a forest clearing. A triangle may align with the peak of a hill. A circle may correspond to a hidden structure. The Templars' use of multiple layers, symbolic, geometric, and topographical, creates a multi-dimensional puzzle that continues to intrigue researchers and explorers. Artifacts themselves often carry coded messages. Coins, medallions, or reliquaries may bear letters, symbols, or numbers that reference maps, sites, or instructions. A star engraved on a medallion could indicate a direction. A series of dots might mark distances. A number sequence could point to a hidden chamber. The physical object becomes both treasure and guide, merging material and intellectual value. The challenge of interpretation is immense. Some codes may never be fully understood, lost to time, or intentionally obscured. Others may be waiting for those who can recognize the patterns, connect symbols with sites, and interpret geometry in context. The process is slow, deliberate, and requires both knowledge and imagination, qualities that Templars valued above all. Even the act of creating these codes reflects a philosophical approach. Knowledge was to be protected, not hoarded. Instructions were hidden in ways that ensured only the prepared and worthy could access them. Every line, shape, and symbol was intentional, a safeguard against misuse or misinterpretation. The Templars' approach to secrecy was holistic, integrating writing, geometry, architecture, and landscape into a single system of encoded wisdom. Across continents, the echoes of these symbols endure. Whether in Europe, Nova Scotia, or islands in the Atlantic, Researchers find recurring motifs that hint at connections between sites, treasures, and journeys. These patterns suggest a hidden network, a system of guidance that transcends borders, blending sacred, practical, and navigational knowledge. The imagination is invited to wander further. Perhaps a manuscript leads to a stone in a clearing. A carved star aligns with the rising sun. A series of symbols points across forests and rivers to a hidden vault. The observer becomes part of the code, moving in rhythm with the Templars' design, interpreting and connecting, noticing details that might otherwise be overlooked, even in the absence of definitive proof. The existence of coded symbols encourages exploration. It invites curiosity, study, and wonder. Each discovery, whether a manuscript fragment, a carved stone, or a medallion, adds a piece to the puzzle, suggesting a broader system of knowledge waiting to be unlocked. The process of interpretation becomes a journey, echoing the Templars' emphasis on patience, observation, and discernment. And so, the symbols, codes, and hidden messages of the Templars are more than curiosities. They are invitations, challenges, and gateways into a world where knowledge is layered, preserved, and transmitted in subtle, enduring ways. They encourage us to look, to think, and to wonder, blending history, mystery, and imagination into a single, captivating pursuit. Through ciphers, geometry, and encoded maps, the Templars ensured that their treasures, whether material, spiritual, or intellectual, could survive centuries of change. The language of secrecy endures, calling to the patient and perceptive, promising discovery for those willing to see, to connect, and to interpret the intricate web left behind. And as we close the pages of manuscripts, step back from carved stones, and trace symbols across parchment, we realize that the Templars' greatest treasure may not be gold or jewels, but the legacy of a hidden system, a map of knowledge, devotion, and mystery that continues to challenge, intrigue, and inspire. The codes remain, patiently waiting. The symbols endure. The maps, hidden in manuscripts and architecture alike, whisper to those who are willing to listen, promising that the journey of discovery is as rich and rewarding as any treasure buried beneath stone or soil. The Atlantic Ocean stretches endlessly, a vast expanse of water that has both separated and connected civilizations for millennia. To most, the idea of Templars crossing these waters centuries before Columbus seems improbable, almost fantastical, and yet the legends persist. They speak of ships, maps, and voyages guided by coded instructions, celestial alignment, and a mastery of navigation that remains mysterious to this day. Imagine a night at sea, the sky filled with stars, their positions carefully charted by those trained to read the heavens. The Templars were not only warriors and scholars, they were observers of the natural world, skilled in astronomy, mathematics, and geography. Their knowledge of stars, tides, and currents would have allowed them to venture far from European shores, guided not by modern instruments, but by careful observation, calculation, and intuition. Oak Island in Nova Scotia has become the focal point of these stories. A small, seemingly unremarkable island hides a complex of pits, layers of stone, and mysterious constructions. Legends suggest that the Templars, or their successors, buried treasures, their relics, manuscripts, or artifacts of extraordinary value. Excavations over the centuries have revealed tantalizing clues, layers of wood, stone, and soil arranged with precision, as if protecting something far more significant than ordinary wealth. Some propose that these are not mere pirate caches, but intentional Templar deposits, hidden using principles of geometry, alignment, and encoded instruction. Maps, both surviving and lost, may have guided such voyages. Some suggest that the Templars possessed charts detailing safe routes across the Atlantic, landmarks to navigate, and locations for secret settlements or treasure sites. These maps would not have resembled the familiar charts of later centuries. Instead, they may have been coded, symbolic, and layered, combining geometric forms, star alignments, and symbolic markers, allowing only those trained in their language to follow them accurately. Nova Scotia itself features sites that some researchers associate with Templar activity. Hidden clearings, unusual stone arrangements, and subtle markers in the landscape hint at deliberate placement. Could these be ceremonial, practical, or protective? Perhaps they functioned as guides, aligning with celestial events, sacred geometry, or coded instructions left by Templars for future generations. The evidence is fragmented, yet persistent patterns invite curiosity and investigation. The legend of the Oak Island Money Pit exemplifies this mystery. Reports describe layers of stone, logs, and soil, with artifacts allegedly found at varying depths, coins, medallions, and fragments of manuscripts. Some suggest that these were not merely treasures of material value, but symbolic deposits designed to safeguard knowledge or sacred relics. The pit itself may act as both a vault and a puzzle, requiring careful study, patience, and insight to uncover its secrets. Some researchers suggest that these voyages were motivated by more than treasure. They were missions of preservation. The Templars faced persecution in Europe, their order dissolved, and their properties seized. The Atlantic may have offered refuge for sacred objects, manuscripts, and knowledge. Hidden settlements, islands, or underground vaults would have allowed them to safeguard the order's legacy, ensuring that treasures, maps, and symbols survived, even as the world changed around them. Legends also speak of coded inscriptions on stones, trees, or landscape features along the coastlines of Nova Scotia. Carvings resembling the hooked X or other symbols appear repeatedly, hinting at deliberate placement. These may mark routes, warn of dangers, or indicate buried treasures. Such markers connect the old world with the new, suggesting that Templar knowledge and methods were applied across continents, extending the reach of their secrecy and influence. One of the most intriguing aspects of these stories is the blend of physical and symbolic guidance. A carved stone may align with a hill or river, a celestial event, or a hidden chamber. A manuscript may encode coordinates, distances, or instructions in symbols, numbers, or letters. The combination of landscape, architecture, and coded messages creates a multidimensional map, a system where observation, patience, and interpretation reveal paths to hidden treasures and sacred knowledge. Consider the idea of a Templar ship setting sail from Europe, laden not only with material wealth but with relics, manuscripts, and symbolic objects. Navigators trained in astronomy would chart courses by stars, rivers, and coastal landmarks. Encoded maps, carried in manuscripts or inscribed on objects, would guide the journey, while symbols on land indicated safe harbors or hidden caches. The voyage itself becomes a treasure hunt, blending skill, knowledge, and secrecy. Stories also suggest connections between Oak Island and Europe. Some theorists propose that maps encoded in Rosslyn Chapel or other Templar sites may point across the Atlantic, hinting at treasure sites in Nova Scotia. Geometry, alignment, and symbolic markers may have been employed deliberately, creating a bridge between continents. The challenge of interpretation mirrors the Templars' original intent. Only those prepared, patient, and knowledgeable could access the full meaning. Beyond Oak Island, Nova Scotia contains numerous sites that have inspired speculation. Forest, clearings, stone arrangements, and unusual topographical features suggest deliberate placement. These may have functioned as ceremonial spaces, markers, or hidden vaults. Alignments with stars, rivers, or other landscape features suggest that sacred geometry and observation played a role. The evidence is subtle, yet consistent, inviting both curiosity and careful investigation. Legends of treasure, relics, and manuscripts on Oak Island have persisted for centuries, fueled by discoveries, anomalies, and tantalizing clues. Even when physical artifacts are absent, the patterns of soil, stone, and construction hint at intentional design. Some researchers argue that these patterns are consistent with Templar engineering and cryptographic methods, suggesting that the island may preserve not only material treasures, but encoded knowledge, waiting for those capable of interpretation. Voyages across the Atlantic were not merely physical journeys, but acts of preservation and strategy. The Templars may have sought refuge, safeguarding sacred objects and knowledge from persecution. By placing treasures in carefully chosen locations, they ensured that even if Europe became hostile, the Order's legacy could endure. These deposits would have required maps, markers, and symbolic guidance, linking Europe to the New World through a network of coded instructions and careful observation. Even the smallest artifacts, recovered on Oak Island or in surrounding areas, may carry symbolic significance. Coins, medallions, or fragments of manuscripts may contain letters, numbers, or symbols pointing toward other sites, guiding seekers through a landscape layered with meaning. Each object becomes both treasure and map, merging the physical and intellectual, the sacred and practical. The stories of Templar voyages also emphasize secrecy and discretion. Ships crossing the Atlantic would need to avoid attention, transporting precious cargo under the cover of ordinary trade or pilgrimage. Coded maps, celestial navigation, and symbolic markers allowed the Templars to move through space and time without revealing their ultimate goals. The system of secrecy ensured that treasures and knowledge remained protected, accessible only to those trained in the Order's methods. Even today, researchers follow these trails, studying maps, symbols, and alignments. Oak Island, Nova Scotia, and other purported sites continue to fascinate. As evidence accumulates in fragments, a carved stone here, a manuscript note there, a pattern of soil layers suggesting intentional placement, the search itself becomes part of the mystery, echoing the Templars' emphasis on observation, patience, and discernment. The Atlantic, vast and unyielding, becomes more than a barrier, it is a bridge between worlds, connecting old world knowledge and treasures with new world possibilities. The Templars, through careful observation, encoded instruction, and strategic planning, may have extended their influence across continents, leaving traces that endure in legends, landscape, and coded symbols. And so, the story of Templar voyages invites both skepticism and wonder. The evidence is subtle, fragmentary, and often ambiguous, yet patterns persist, hinting at a hidden network of treasures, manuscripts, and sacred objects across the Atlantic. Each clue, whether in stone, manuscript, or landscape, contributes to a larger puzzle, a system of guidance, secrecy, and preservation that continues to capture the imagination. In imagining these voyages, we see more than ships crossing oceans. We see a network of knowledge, devotion, and strategy, where treasures are safeguarded, symbols encode guidance, and maps, both literal and symbolic, preserve the legacy of an order determined to endure. The Atlantic becomes a stage for mystery, curiosity, and discovery, inviting the patient, the observant, and the imaginative to follow in the Templars' wake. Even without definitive proof, the legends endure. They connect Europe and the Americas. Oak Island and Rosslyn Chapel, coded manuscripts and landscape markers. They suggest a system of treasures, knowledge, and hidden messages, waiting for those capable of perceiving them. The pursuit itself becomes part of the treasure, as valuable as any chest of gold, relic, or manuscript buried beneath earth and stone, and as the waves lap against the shores of Oak Island, as stars trace patterns across the Atlantic sky, and as researchers study maps and symbols with patience and care. The legacy of the Templars continues. The voyage, both literal and intellectual, remains a journey through secrecy, observation, and curiosity, a journey that invites us to explore, to wonder, and to follow the traces of an order whose treasures and knowledge may span continents and centuries. The story of the Templars in the New World is not limited to voyages or isolated treasure pits. Some researchers suggest that the order or groups influenced by its knowledge may have established secret settlements, places where treasures, manuscripts, and sacred objects could be preserved over generations. These settlements were designed with caution, secrecy, and purpose, often hidden from the eyes of outsiders while remaining aligned with celestial patterns, geometry, and coded guidance. Imagine a clearing deep in the forests of Nova Scotia or along the rugged coasts of Newfoundland. Stones arranged in circular formations, faint lines of earthworks, or unusual placements of trees suggest more than natural growth. They hint at deliberate construction. Could these be markers for secret chambers, sites for ceremonial activity, or the framework for hidden vaults containing Templar treasures? The evidence is subtle, yet patterns repeat across locations, inviting careful observation. Oak Island remains the most famous example, with its money pit, layers of soil, wood, and stone, and tantalizing hints of artifacts recovered over centuries. Some suggest that beneath the surface lies a system of tunnels, chambers, or vaults designed to protect treasures. Others argue that the construction reflects advanced engineering knowledge, with booby traps, water channels, and coded markers to prevent intrusion. The sophistication of these designs aligns with what we know of Templar ingenuity in Europe. Beyond Oak Island, there are reports of stone-lined pits, hidden cellars, and underground chambers across Nova Scotia and parts of New England. Some of these sites correspond with unusual markers on maps, celestial alignments, or coded symbols found in Templar manuscripts. The combination of landscape, architecture, and encoded guidance suggests a deliberate strategy to conceal, protect, and preserve knowledge and treasure across time. If the Templars or those inspired by them did establish settlements in the New World, they likely adhered to principles similar to those used in Europe. Geometry, alignment, and symbolic markers would have guided construction. Circles may indicate ceremonial spaces. Triangles may mark significant directions. Stars carved on stones may align with celestial events. These features would serve both practical and mystical purposes, ensuring secrecy while encoding layers of meaning. The idea of hidden vaults is intertwined with these settlements. Some researchers suggest that Oak Island's pit is part of a network of subterranean chambers designed to store valuable manuscripts, religious relics, and precious metals. If true, these vaults would have been engineered with advanced understanding of drainage, structural integrity, and security skills the Templars mastered in European fortifications. The pit may be both treasure trove and a lesson in architectural secrecy, demonstrating the blend of practicality and protection the order valued. Maps and coded instructions likely played a role in locating these settlements. Manuscripts with geometric diagrams, symbolic markers, and cryptic text may have been carried across the Atlantic, guiding explorers to hidden sites. The combination of landscape observation, celestial navigation, and symbolic understanding allowed treasures to be stored in ways that were recoverable only by those who knew the system. The Templars' approach to secrecy was holistic, integrating knowledge, observation, and practical engineering. Even the simplest markers, a carved stone, an unusual tree, or a clearing in the forest, may serve as coordinates in a larger system. Researchers have noted recurring symbols in North American sites that resemble European Templar motifs. The hooked X, spirals, interlocking triangles, and star arrangements. Such patterns suggest continuity, hinting at shared knowledge that spans continents and centuries. The purpose of these settlements may have extended beyond treasure storage. They could have served as waystations for travelers, safe havens for manuscripts and artifacts, or ceremonial spaces preserving Templar rituals in secrecy. Some speculate that knowledge of sacred geometry, astronomy, and navigation was also preserved and transmitted through these sites, allowing future generations to continue the work of the order. Consider the experience of discovering such a site. Walking through a forest, noticing subtle arrangements of stones, clearings, or markers that align with celestial events, the observer begins to see patterns in the landscape. A sequence of stones may indicate a path, a pit may mark a hidden chamber, and a carved symbol may provide guidance. Each discovery, however small, contributes to a larger understanding, a layered network of knowledge carefully protected across generations. Nova Scotia's terrain, with its dense forests, rocky shores, and hidden coves, would have offered ideal conditions for such settlements. The Templars or those following their methods could establish hidden communities or storage areas, taking advantage of natural features for concealment and defense. Rivers, inlets, and islands could serve as natural barriers, while stars, rivers, and mountains could guide navigation and placement. The landscape itself became part of the Templars' map. The secrecy of these settlements may also explain why evidence is scarce. Many sites could have been intentionally obscured, abandoned, or disguised as ordinary settlements. Markers may be subtle, accessible only to those trained to interpret them. Even oral traditions, stories, and legends passed down through generations may carry encoded guidance, a subtle memory of locations and treasures. The Templars' approach to preservation was comprehensive, combining physical, symbolic, and cultural strategies. Some researchers have explored connections between these hidden settlements and local legends. Stories of strange stone structures, buried artifacts, and mysterious symbols in forests and hills may reflect Templar influence. In some cases, indigenous knowledge intersects with these legends, suggesting that local communities observed unusual patterns, structures, or markers and preserved stories that hint at hidden activity. These overlapping narratives provide tantalizing clues, though they remain fragmentary and open to interpretation. Even manuscripts from Europe may connect to these sites. Coded maps, symbolic diagrams, and cryptic instructions may correspond to locations across the Atlantic. Lines on a parchment could mirror rivers or inlets. Spirals may reflect forest clearings. Stars could guide alignment with specific dates or celestial events. The integration of manuscript, landscape, and settlement creates a multidimensional system of guidance and preservation. The Templars' approach to secrecy and preservation reflects a deep understanding of human nature and time. Knowledge stored too plainly risks loss or theft. Buried too deeply, it risks being forgotten. By combining landscape, architecture, geometry, and coded instruction, the Templars created a system that could survive centuries, accessible only to those prepared to observe, interpret, and act. Their settlements, vaults, and markers were not merely practical, they were philosophical, ensuring the entrance of both treasure and wisdom. In this sense, the pursuit of Templar settlements is as much intellectual as it is physical. Observers must analyze patterns, interpret symbols, and connect landscape features with historical knowledge and coded guidance. Each site may offer partial insight, revealing layers that can be pieced together over time. The journey mirrors the Templars' original intent to preserve, protect, and transmit knowledge in a careful, deliberate manner. The mystery of these settlements and vaults continues to draw explorers, historians, and enthusiasts. Oak Island, Nova Scotia, and other sites inspire ongoing investigation. As new discoveries, artifacts, unusual constructions, or coded markers appear, even when direct evidence of treasure is absent, the patterns suggest intentional design, hinting at a network of hidden sites awaiting careful exploration. Ultimately, the theories of Templar settlements in North America invite wonder, curiosity, and imagination, whether serving as treasure repositories, sacred spaces, or centers for preserving knowledge. These hidden sites demonstrate the Templars' ingenuity, foresight, and commitment to secrecy. They remind us that the Order's legacy may extend far beyond European shores, leaving traces in the landscapes, symbols, and stories of the New World. And so, as we trace rivers, examine stone arrangements, and study coded maps, we begin to perceive the Templars' hidden network across continents. Each discovery, observation, or interpretation contributes to a larger understanding, a system of preservation, secrecy, and wisdom that transcends time. The settlements and vaults may be concealed, but their legacy endures, calling to the patient, the observant, and the imaginative. In exploring these hidden sites, we participate in a centuries-old dialogue. The Templars' careful planning, coded guidance, and strategic use of landscape invite us to look, think, and connect. The journey through forests, islands, and hidden chambers becomes part of the treasure itself, a path of discovery, observation, and wonder, echoing the intentions of an order determined to endure across time and space. And as the sun sets over the forests of Nova Scotia, casting long shadows over stones and clearings, we sense the presence of something deliberate, something hidden yet waiting to be revealed. The Templars' settlements and vaults remain silent guardians, preserving secrets, treasures, and knowledge, challenging us to follow the patterns, decode the symbols, and continue the journey of discovery that has spanned centuries. Oak Island, a small island off the coast of Nova Scotia, has long captured imaginations, drawing explorers, historians, and treasure hunters into its enigmatic story. For over 2 centuries, the so-called money pit has teased those who seek its secrets, revealing tantalizing hints yet concealing the full truth. Stones, layers of timber, flooded shafts, and artifacts suggest a carefully engineered system, possibly linked to the Templars, yet the evidence is fragmentary, enigmatic, and endlessly intriguing. Imagine standing at the edge of the money pit, the Atlantic wind brushing against your face. The pit appears ordinary, a depression in the earth, yet beneath its surface lies a mystery that has captivated generations. Each layer, from the first logs to deeper stone and soil, seems deliberately constructed. Some layers contain hints of craftsmanship beyond what would be expected from simple treasure burial, suggesting a sophistication of design that echoes the ingenuity of Templar engineering in Europe. Early explorers reported finding layers of stone, oak logs, and soil interspersed with mysterious objects, coins, tools, and fragments of manuscripts. Over time, the pit became both legend and laboratory, inspiring excavations, engineering studies, and endless speculation. What treasure could be so carefully protected that its concealment required such complex design? And why would someone go to such lengths to secure it? Theories range from pirate gold to sacred relics, from Templar hoards to coded manuscripts, each possibility tantalizing the imagination. One of the most remarkable aspects of the money pit is its engineering. Layers of oak logs placed at intervals suggest knowledge of structural integrity, while booby traps designed to flood shafts demonstrate advanced planning. Channels may have been dug to direct water from the surrounding swamp, creating obstacles for those who attempted to dig without understanding the system. Such sophistication aligns with what we know of Templar expertise in fortifications, drainage, and concealment, echoing European sites where tunnels, chambers, and hidden caches were common. The artifacts reportedly found at Oak Island are equally compelling. Pieces of parchment, coins from different centuries, metal fragments, and items with apparent symbolic meaning suggest a mix of practical and ceremonial deposits. Some researchers argue these are part of a deliberate system of preservation, where treasure was intertwined with encoded knowledge, sacred objects, or symbolic markers. The money pit may not be simply a vault of gold, it may be a repository of layered knowledge, hidden instructions, and clues. Historical investigations over centuries have added both insight and mystery. From 18th century explorers to modern treasure hunting teams, each attempt to uncover the pit's secrets has revealed fragments without revealing the whole. Layers collapse, floods impede progress, and puzzling anomalies resist explanation. The persistence of mystery only heightens fascination. Every discovery, from a coin to a fragment of wood, becomes a link in a chain of speculation, suggesting a carefully designed and protected system. Some researchers propose Templar involvement based on patterns, symbols, and techniques, engineering methods, coded markers, and alignment with celestial features echo practices found in European Templar sites. Theories suggest that Oak Island may have been chosen as a secure location to preserve sacred objects, manuscripts, or knowledge that the Order sought to protect from persecution. The pit itself may function as both vault and puzzle, ensuring that only the informed and patient could access its contents. The legends of Oak Island often blur fact and story. Tales of explorers disappearing, booby traps, and mysterious symbols have created a narrative as compelling as any manuscript or map. While skeptics dismiss some accounts as myth, recurring patterns and consistent anomalies suggest that the site contains deliberate design. The mixture of legend, historical reports, and physical evidence creates a layered narrative, demanding both skepticism and curiosity. Consider the possibility of maps or manuscripts guiding explorers to the island. Some theorists suggest that encoded instructions, geometric diagrams, or symbolic markers may have been carried across the Atlantic, pointing to Oak Island and indicating how to access its hidden layers. This would align with Templar methods of secrecy, combining observation, encoded guidance, and careful placement to safeguard treasures from casual discovery. Celestial alignment may also play a role. The pit's location, orientation, and surrounding markers could correspond to solar, lunar, or stellar positions, indicating important dates or guiding excavation. Just as Templar sites in Europe align with solstices, equinoxes, or prominent stars, Oak Island may incorporate similar principles, blending natural features with deliberate construction. Observation, patience, and interpretation become as critical as physical digging. The money pit may be only one of many hidden sites. On the island, reports of underground chambers, tunnels, and additional pits suggest a network designed to protect multiple deposits. Some researchers propose that these chambers were layered, combining booby traps, drainage systems, and coded markers to ensure that treasure and knowledge could survive centuries of neglect. Natural disasters and human curiosity. Artifacts recovered from Oak Island often hint at symbolic rather than purely material value. Fragments of metal inscribed with letters, shards of what appear to be ceremonial objects, and pieces of manuscript suggest that the pit contained more than gold. Some believe these items may encode instructions, act as markers, or preserve sacred knowledge. The Templars' skill in combining physical and symbolic deposits would explain the enduring fascination and complexity of the site. The engineering challenges of Oak Island have inspired admiration and speculation. Water-filled tunnels, carefully layered stones, and strategically placed logs demonstrate planning, precision, An understanding of natural forces, flooding, soil shifts, and hidden channels suggest an intentional system to protect and preserve. The sophistication hints at knowledge far beyond simple treasure burial, reflecting expertise in engineering, mathematics, and concealment. Historical records add another layer of intrigue. Early explorers documented discoveries, setbacks, and mysterious finds, sometimes contradicting one another. Coins from various eras, metal fragments, and notes or inscriptions appeared at different depths, while skeptics argue that these items may have been introduced later or misinterpreted. The repeated discovery of anomalies at multiple depths suggests deliberate design. Each layer may carry meaning, hinting at a larger puzzle yet to be fully understood. Even modern investigations continue to uncover subtle clues. Advanced techniques, such as sonar scanning, ground-penetrating radar, and geotechnical analysis, reveal patterns in soil density, subterranean voids, and construction techniques. While no definitive treasure has been recovered, these studies confirm that the site contains features that cannot be explained by natural processes alone. The money pit remains a carefully constructed enigma. Theories of Templar involvement draw connections between Oak Island and European sites. Patterns in engineering, coded markers, and ceremonial symbolism suggest continuity with the Order's practices. Manuscripts and maps may have guided placement, while knowledge of geometry, alignment, and engineering ensured preservation. The pit may represent a bridge between continents, an Atlantic repository where the Templars or those inspired by them safeguarded treasures, relics, or sacred knowledge. In addition to the money pit, surrounding sites on Oak Island may hold clues, stone markers, depressions, and unusual arrangements of trees or rocks suggest deliberate placement. Some researchers argue that these features indicate a system of guidance, linking multiple deposits and offering additional layers of secrecy. The island itself becomes a complex landscape, combining natural concealment with human ingenuity, designed to preserve its secrets across centuries. The enduring fascination with Oak Island reflects more than treasure hunting. It speaks to human curiosity, imagination, and the desire to uncover hidden knowledge. The blending of legend, historical reports, engineering anomalies, and coded artifacts creates a layered narrative, inviting observation, study, and interpretation. Each artifact, layer, or anomaly becomes part of a larger puzzle, echoing the Templars' methods of secrecy and preservation. Imagine standing once more at the edge of the pit, listening to the Atlantic waves, tracing the layers of wood, stone, and soil. Every layer holds history, intention, and possibility. Each artifact, fragment, or anomaly hints at the Templars' ingenuity, patience, and devotion to secrecy. The money pit remains both challenge and invitation, a monument to human ingenuity, and the enduring allure of hidden treasure, even without definitive proof. Oak Island continues to inspire curiosity. Its network of pits, chambers, and artifacts suggests a deliberate strategy, blending engineering, observation, and coded guidance. The site reflects the Templars' approach to knowledge and preservation, emphasizing secrecy, protection, and layered meaning. The search is both physical and intellectual, requiring observation, interpretation, and patience. Ultimately, Oak Island embodies the mystery of the Templars' hidden treasures, engineering marvels, coded artifacts, celestial alignments, and strategic placement create a site that challenges explorers, historians, and researchers. The money pit may hold gold, sacred relics, manuscripts, or symbolic treasures, but even the journey itself, tracing patterns, uncovering clues, and interpreting layers, mirrors the Templars' original intent, preserving knowledge, safeguarding secrets, an inspiring wonder for generations to come. And as the Atlantic winds sweep across the island, whispering through trees and over stone, Oak Island remains a sentinel of mystery. Each layer of soil, each fragment of wood, each subtle marker calls to those willing to observe, think, and imagine. The money pit, engineering marvel, and legend continues to captivate, reminding us that treasure is not only material but also knowledge, curiosity, and the pursuit of understanding that bridges centuries and continents. The mystery of Oak Island and its hidden treasures does not exist in isolation. Across the Atlantic, in the old forests and stone-laden landscapes of Europe, traces of the Templars' knowledge, symbolism, and networks offer tantalizing connections. Rosslyn Chapel, in Scotland, is among the most compelling of these sites. Its intricate carvings, hidden motifs, and architectural complexity hinting at knowledge, treasures, and mysteries that may extend far beyond its walls. Imagine entering Rosslyn Chapel, stepping over worn stone floors, the air heavy with centuries of incense, history, and reverence. Carvings adorn nearly every surface, spirals, stars, geometric shapes, and curious figures interwoven in ways that defy casual observation. Some images appear ordinary at first glance, yet subtle repetitions, hidden alignments, and encoded patterns hint at deliberate design. Scholars and enthusiasts alike have noted strange symbols, maize, aloe vera, and other exotic elements suggesting knowledge of lands far beyond Europe. Could Rosslyn Chapel be part of a broader Templar network, connecting European knowledge, sacred geometry, and coded guidance to sites across the Atlantic? Many researchers believe it may be more than a place of worship. Its carvings, proportions, and alignments suggest intentional encoding of information possibly relating to maps, sacred relics, or even treasures hidden on distant shores, including Oak Island. The chapel may have served as both spiritual sanctuary and intellectual repository, preserving the order's knowledge in stone. The symbolic motifs at Rosslyn are striking. Stars and geometric figures echo patterns found in Templar manuscripts, maps, and European fortifications. Spirals, interlocking triangles, and the so-called apprentice pillar hint at complex teachings, possibly blending mathematics, geometry, and esoteric knowledge. Some theorists argue that these symbols encode directions, locations, or principles, meant to guide those trained in their interpretation. The patterns may be read as both spiritual and practical maps, connecting Europe to distant lands. Historical records link the Sinclairs, patrons of Rosslyn Chapel, to Templar interests and influence. The Sinclairs, known for their European travels and knowledge of sacred geometry, may have maintained connections with the order's surviving members, or influenced those seeking to preserve Templar treasures. Their patronage of Rosslyn suggests an awareness of encoded architecture, symbolic preservation, and potentially transatlantic connections. Consider the alignment of the chapel itself. Some researchers note that Rosslyn's proportions, orientation, and carvings correspond to celestial events, sacred numbers, and geometric principles. These alignments are more than aesthetic. They may serve as keys to decoding maps, manuscripts, or symbolic instructions, just as Oak Island's money pit may align with natural and engineered markers. Rosslyn Chapel integrates observation, symbolism, and geometry to preserve knowledge. The chapel contains curious carvings of maize and aloe vera plants native to the Americas. While skeptics suggest these are decorative, their presence raises questions. Could knowledge of distant lands, exploration, or Templar voyages have influenced these designs? Were they symbolic representations of treasures, discoveries, or lands across the Atlantic? The possibility invites wonder, hinting at connections that span oceans and centuries. Maps and manuscripts may have linked European sites like Rosslyn Chapel to the New World, geometric diagrams, encoded instructions, and symbolic markers could guide travelers to secret settlements, hidden vaults, or treasure pits. The Templars, masters of secrecy, may have relied on these symbols to preserve their legacy across continents. The alignment of Rosslyn with such guidance could indicate an intentional system bridging Europe and North America. The chapels. Carvings also contain repeated motifs reminiscent of the hooked X, spirals, and other Templar symbols observed in manuscripts and European fortifications. These patterns suggest continuity, creating a symbolic language that transcends geography. By studying the repetitions, researchers attempt to decode instructions, locate connections, and understand the intentions behind these designs. The network of symbols may have served as both spiritual instruction and practical guidance. Some theorists propose that Rosslyn Chapel functioned as a headquarters for knowledge preservation, a node in a broader Templar network. Manuscripts, maps, and symbolic architecture could coordinate with hidden settlements, secret vaults, and markers in distant lands. Just as Oak Island may conceal treasures and knowledge, Rosslyn may preserve encoded principles, geometric patterns, and symbolic guidance for those trained to interpret them. European Templar sites contain other subtle connections. Fortifications, ruins, and old monasteries exhibit similar geometric patterns, coded symbols, and hidden markers. Circles, triangles, stars, and spirals appear in carvings, floor layouts, and architectural proportions. The recurrence of these motifs suggests a shared system of encoding knowledge, guiding movement, or preserving secrets. Some of these sites may have served as way stations, repositories, or ceremonial centers linked to Atlantic voyages and hidden settlements. Even minor details, the placement of pillars, orientation of windows, or alignment of carvings may carry encoded significance. Researchers have noted repeated ratios and dimensions corresponding to sacred geometry, numerical codes, or celestial patterns. These features could connect to maps, manuscripts, or hidden treasures, creating a multi-dimensional network where observation, interpretation, and symbolic literacy are essential to understanding. Legends of transatlantic Templar voyages intersect with these European sites. Some suggest that Oak Island and Nova Scotia were destinations not only for treasures, but for manuscripts, religious relics, and knowledge preserved from persecution. Rosslyn Chapel and other European nodes may have served as preparation, training, or symbolic instruction, encoding guidance for those traveling to the New World. The network becomes both material and intellectual, spanning continents and generations. Consider the possibility of coded maps hidden in the chapel itself. Carvings, architectural proportions, and motifs may reflect distances, directions, or landmarks. Spiral patterns could represent rivers or forest clearings. Interlocking triangles could mark hidden chambers or navigational points. The chapel, manuscript, and landscape together form a layered map, accessible only to those who understand the symbolic language, even without definitive proof. The connections are compelling. Rosslyn Chapel's carvings, European Templar sites, and anomalies in Nova Scotia suggest a network of hidden knowledge, preserved across continents and centuries. Each site, whether chapel, pit, or clearing, may contain layers of meaning, from sacred geometry and encoded guidance to physical treasures. The Templars' meticulous approach to preservation and secrecy is evident in the recurring patterns, symbols, and engineering techniques. The network may have extended beyond Europe and Nova Scotia. Some theorists propose links to other Atlantic sites, islands, and settlements, forming a transcontinental system of hidden knowledge. Symbols, manuscripts, and architectural markers provide the clues, while observation, interpretation, and careful study reveal the connections. The pursuit of these links becomes an intellectual journey, echoing the Templars' intent to safeguard knowledge and treasures through layered secrecy. Symbols like the hooked X, geometric spirals, and star arrangements recur across multiple sites, suggesting deliberate placement and shared meaning. These markers may indicate treasure, guidance, or ceremonial significance. Repetition across continents implies continuity, preserving information for those capable of decoding it. The Templars' approach integrates spiritual, practical, and intellectual dimensions, blending architecture, landscape, and manuscripts into a cohesive system. Even in small details, the carving of a leaf, the alignment of a floor pattern, or the shape of a column, researchers find possible codes. These subtle features may serve as keys to manuscripts, maps, or distant sites. Observation, intuition, and symbolic literacy become essential tools, allowing the observer to follow a trail that crosses oceans, centuries, and layers of history. The European echo is not merely symbolic, it may be practical. Connections between Rosslyn Chapel, Templar fortifications, and hidden vaults in Nova Scotia suggest a deliberate system of guidance. Architecture, symbols, and manuscripts serve as nodes, encoding knowledge and directing travelers or seekers. Each site contributes to a network, creating a map that blends geography, geometry, and encoded instruction through careful study. Patterns emerge, recurring motifs, celestial alignments, and coded symbols hint at Templar methods of preservation and instruction. The Order's legacy may survive not only in manuscripts and relics but in landscape, architecture, and symbols that guide the observant across continents. The network links Europe to North America, connecting spiritual instruction, material preservation, and practical guidance in a unified system. The challenge for modern researchers is immense. Sites are scattered, evidence is fragmentary, and interpretation requires both historical knowledge and intuition. Yet the persistence of patterns, the recurrence of symbols, and the sophistication of design suggest deliberate intent. Observation, patience, and curiosity remain essential, echoing the Templars' own values of discernment, secrecy, and layered knowledge. Ultimately, the European echoes remind us that Oak Island and Nova Scotia may be only part of a broader network. Rosslyn Chapel, European fortifications, and Templar manuscripts form a lattice of knowledge, symbols, and guidance. The network spans continents and centuries, preserving treasures, manuscripts, and sacred instruction. Each site is a node in a larger system, waiting for those capable of decoding its secrets to follow the path laid by an order determined to endure. And so, as we walk through Rosslyn Chapel, tracing carvings, examining motifs, and contemplating their significance, we sense a connection that stretches across the Atlantic. The Templars' hidden knowledge, treasures, and symbols form a network that bridges Europe and the New World, challenging observers to see, interpret, and follow. The journey is as layered, deliberate, and mysterious as the Order itself, inviting curiosity, wonder, and discovery that continues to echo through time. Long before Columbus sailed across the Atlantic, whispers of distant lands, uncharted coasts, and hidden treasures echoed through Europe. Among these whispers, the Templars, with their advanced knowledge of navigation, astronomy, and sacred geometry, may have held maps and instructions pointing toward lands far beyond Europe's familiar shores. One of the most intriguing pieces of evidence is the Zeno map, a 16th century chart depicting regions of the North Atlantic with surprising accuracy, hinting at voyages undertaken long before mainstream history acknowledges. Imagine a parchment, aged and delicate, inked with coastlines, islands, and symbols unfamiliar to most. This map, attributed to the Zeno brothers, depicts a network of islands, peninsulas, and waterways in the North Atlantic. Its accuracy, especially when compared to later explorations, raises questions. How could a map created in the early 1500s reflect detailed knowledge of regions, only later discovered? Some researchers suggest that the information originates from older sources, possibly Templar voyages or knowledge preserved in secret. Manuscripts. The Zeno map presents several islands and positions that modern scholars recognize as part of the North Atlantic, including areas near Greenland, Iceland, and parts of North America. While some historians argue the map is speculative, the consistent accuracy of distances, coastlines, and navigational markers suggests more than imagination. If Templars or their associates traveled across these waters, maps like this could serve as guides, encoding locations, hazards, and perhaps even hidden settlements or treasure sites. Navigation in the Templar era was more than practical seamanship. The order combined observation, mathematics, and celestial knowledge to traverse oceans safely. Tools such as astrolabes, compasses, and star charts allowed navigators to track latitude and align journeys with precision. The Templars' secretive training may have included memorized maps, encoded routes, and symbolic guidance methods that could have informed voyages represented in the Zeno map. Consider the possibility of coded instructions embedded within the map. Symbols, unusual island shapes, or seemingly decorative lines may correspond to hidden settlements, sacred sites, or treasure deposits. Just as Rosslyn Chapel encodes information in stone, the Zeno map may encode Atlantic voyages and hidden knowledge in its lines and shapes. Observers trained in interpretation could decipher these cues, linking European knowledge to North American. Locations such as Nova Scotia, Oak Island, or hidden Templar vaults. Pre-Columbian navigation theories complement this idea. Several scholars have argued that voyages from Europe to the Americas occurred long before 1492. Norse explorers reached Greenland and Newfoundland, while mysterious transatlantic trade, artifacts, and cultural traces suggest broader, undocumented contacts. Within this context, Templar voyages may have been part of a clandestine effort to explore, map, and secure lands across the Atlantic. Maps like the Zeno chart could serve as evidence of such journeys. The Templars' approach to secrecy extended to navigation. Voyages were not only logistical but symbolic, guided by stars, sacred geometry, and encoded knowledge. Routes may have been deliberately obscured or recorded in symbolic forms, ensuring that only initiates could access the information. In this way, maps, manuscripts, and landscape markers functioned as layers of preservation, safeguarding discoveries and treasures against misuse or loss. Some researchers point to correlations between the Zeno map and hidden settlements in North America. Certain islands, inlets, and coastal features resemble locations associated with Templar theories, suggesting that knowledge of these areas predates conventional history. The precise alignment of features on the map may hint at waypoints, hidden deposits, or navigational markers left for those trained to read them. Oak Island and Nova Scotia, with their mysterious pits, vaults, and clearings, could correspond to these mapped instructions. Archaeological evidence adds weight to these possibilities. Stone structures, unusual markers, and artifacts in North America hint at European influence prior to Columbus, while mainstream archaeology often attributes these finds to later settlers or misinterpretation. The patterns are suggestive. Circular earthworks, star-aligned clearings, and coded symbols mirror European Templar practices, implying that voyages guided by maps like the Zeno chart could have occurred. Even minor features in the landscape may correspond to navigational cues. Inlets, rivers, and islands could serve as natural guides, aligning with celestial markers, stone arrangements, or coded symbols. Observation of tides, currents, and winds would complement this system, creating a navigational network that blends natural and human-made markers. The Atlantic, in this sense, becomes a map of hidden knowledge, navigable only to those with skill, training, and access to encoded guidance. The Zeno map also hints at the complexity of Atlantic knowledge in the early modern period. Its depictions of ice flows, coastlines, and island chains suggest observation, calculation, and careful recording, whether derived from oral testimony, earlier manuscripts, or clandestine voyages. The map reflects a level of understanding that challenges conventional assumptions about pre-Columbian navigation. It opens the door to theories that the Templars, or those influenced by them, may have crossed the Atlantic long before official accounts. This possibility resonates with patterns in European sites. Rosslyn Chapel, European fortifications, and Templar manuscripts contain encoded symbols, geometric principles, and guidance that could link to transatlantic knowledge. The repetition of patterned stars, spirals, interlocking shapes suggests a system designed to preserve, encode, and transmit information. The Zeno map may represent the Atlantic component of this system, translating European understanding into a chart for navigation and exploration. Treasure hunting and exploration theories often intersect with these ideas. If Templar voyages reach the Americas, they may have transported valuable manuscripts, religious relics, or precious metals. Maps like the Zeno chart would provide guidance, while hidden settlements, vaults, and markers in North America would secure deposits. Oak Island, Nova Scotia, and other sites could be nodes in a broader network, bridging Europe and the New World. The challenge of interpreting the Zeno map lies in its ambiguity. Lines, shapes, and symbols can be read in multiple ways, leaving room for speculation and debate. Yet the consistency of some features with known geography, coupled with correlations to Templar symbols and European patterns, invites careful study, observation, cross-referencing with landscape markers, and understanding of encoded symbolism become essential tools for researchers and explorers. Even if the map represents only partial knowledge, it demonstrates a sophisticated approach to recording, preserving, and transmitting information. Its combination of practical detail, symbolic cues, and geometric precision aligns with the Templars' known practices in Europe. The map becomes both a navigational tool and a coded repository, guiding voyages, marking hidden sites, and preserving secrets across centuries. The Atlantic itself may hold additional clues. Islands, currents, and tidal patterns may correspond to features on the Zeno map, suggesting routes that combine natural observation with encoded guidance. Navigation, in this sense, is multidimensional, integrating celestial observation, landscape interpretation, and symbolic literacy. The Templars' mastery of these skills would allow voyages, settlement, and treasure preservation to proceed with discretion and precision. Artifacts discovered in North America add another layer of intrigue. Stone structures, unusual carvings, and symbolic objects suggest continuity with European practices. Some may correspond to mapped instructions or encoded guidance, creating a physical manifestation of knowledge represented on maps like the Zeno chart. The Atlantic network becomes both intellectual and tangible, bridging geography, symbolism, and material culture. Even oral traditions and legends may preserve knowledge of Templar voyages and hidden treasures. Stories of strange explorers, hidden pits, and mysterious markers echo European influences and may encode information passed across generations. Combined with maps, manuscripts, and landscape markers, these narratives form a multi-dimensional record accessible only to those capable of decoding the symbols and observing patterns. Ultimately, the Zeno map represents more than geography. It is a link between European knowledge, Templar secrecy and Atlantic exploration. Its lines, islands, and symbols hint at voyages, hidden settlements, and treasures preserved across time. Combined with archaeological evidence, symbolic architecture, and coded manuscripts, it suggests a system of knowledge that bridges continents and centuries. As we trace the coastlines, islands, and inlets depicted on the map, we begin to perceive a network of observation, secrecy, and guidance. The Templars' mastery of geometry, navigation, and symbolism echoes across the Atlantic, linking Europe, Oak Island, Nova Scotia, and other hidden sites. The map becomes both tool and testament, a record of voyages, treasures, and knowledge, preserved against the currents of time. And so, as we study the Zeno map, contemplate the patterns, and connect them to landscape, architecture, and hidden sites, we sense the breadth of a network that spans oceans. The Templars' legacy, encoded in symbols, geometry, manuscripts, and maps, challenges us to observe, interpret, and follow. Their knowledge survives not only in stone and soil, but in the lines of a delicate, centuries-old chart, guiding seekers toward hidden truths across the Atlantic waves. The Templars were more than warriors. They were scholars, engineers, and custodians of knowledge. Across Europe, manuscripts preserved in monasteries, private collections, and hidden archives contain intricate symbols, coded instructions, and diagrams whose purpose remains partly obscure. These texts suggest a careful balance between secrecy and preservation, information meant for the initiated, encoded in ways that would endure centuries. Some researchers propose that these manuscripts may contain guidance for transatlantic voyages, maps to hidden treasures, or instructions for safeguarding sacred relics. Imagine a manuscript, its vellum pages soft with age, inked with symbols that at first glance appear decorative. Spirals, interlocking triangles, stars, and unusual geometric forms repeat across pages. Some diagrams suggest celestial observation, mapping, or architectural principles. Others appear abstract, yet patterns emerge with careful study. To the untrained eye, the pages are enigmatic. To the initiated, they may contain layers of practical guidance hidden within spiritual symbolism. The Templars' manuscripts often encode information using multiple layers of meaning. A single symbol may represent both a star, a direction, and a location. A sequence of numbers may indicate distances, alignments, or dates. Just as Rosslyn Chapel encodes information in stone, manuscripts encode knowledge in ink. Decoding these texts requires attention, patience, and understanding of symbolic language developed over centuries of Templar tradition. Consider the possibility that these manuscripts were intended to guide voyages across the Atlantic. Symbols resembling rivers, islands, or coastline features may correspond to hidden settlements or treasure sites. Spirals and interlocking geometric forms could indicate safe passages, navigational markers, or engineered sites designed to protect valuables. In this sense, the manuscripts serve as both spiritual and practical maps, a blend of mystical instruction and concrete guidance. Historical records suggest that some manuscripts were deliberately divided, portions hidden in different locations, pages removed, annotations added, and cryptic diagrams inserted may have been part of a system of layered secrecy. The goal was not merely to record knowledge, but to safeguard it, ensuring that only those with training, observation, and patience could access its full meaning. This approach mirrors the layered construction of Oak Island's money pit and the symbolic architecture of Rosslyn Chapel. Some researchers focus on numeric codes in Templar manuscripts. Numbers are often associated with geometry, astronomy, and symbolic instruction. Certain sequences may correspond to distances, alignment with celestial events, or measures for constructing hidden vaults. In the context of Atlantic exploration, Numeric codes could guide travelers to secret locations, ensuring the safety and preservation of treasures or manuscripts. The symbolism of stars and celestial markers is particularly striking. Manuscripts often include constellations, star charts, or arrangements of points that correspond to significant dates or alignments. Observation of these celestial markers would allow Templar voyagers to navigate across oceans, orient themselves to hidden sites, or determine precise moments for action. In this sense, the manuscripts integrate astronomy, mathematics, and practical navigation. Coded diagrams suggest hidden geometric principles. Interlocking triangles, circles, and spirals may indicate structural plans for vaults, tunnels, or engineered pits. Some symbols resemble those observed at European Templar sites and at Rosslyn Chapel, hinting at a continuous system of instruction linking manuscripts, architecture, and landscape. The Atlantic Voyages, Oak Island, and Nova Scotia could all be part of this encoded system, bridging continents through careful observation and preserved knowledge. Consider the layers of encoding in a single manuscript. A diagram might appear as art, yet within its lines lie instructions for navigation, treasure location, or construction. Marginal notes could contain numeric sequences representing distances, while symbols embedded in corners mark celestial alignments. The manuscripts are multidimensional, spiritual, symbolic, and practical, requiring both interpretation and observation. To decode, some manuscripts suggest ritual or ceremonial significance alongside practical instruction. Symbols may indicate preparation, timing, or sacred observance required before undertaking certain tasks. The Templars' blending of spiritual and practical knowledge ensured that those accessing hidden treasures or sacred relics approach with reverence, caution, and understanding. Knowledge was preserved not only in material form but in ethical and spiritual context. Connections between manuscripts and Atlantic sites are subtle yet compelling. Certain symbols correlate with features on Oak Island, Nova Scotia, and other proposed locations. Geometric patterns, numeric codes, and celestial references may correspond to pit layers, markers, or settlement layouts. Observers trained in the symbolic language could translate diagrams into practical guidance, bridging the gap between Europe and the New World. The interplay of language, geometry, and symbol is central to Templar manuscripts. Letters, numbers, and diagrams often overlap in meaning, creating a dense, layered system. A single mark could indicate a star, a distance, and a sacred principle simultaneously. This multi-dimensional encoding ensures that knowledge is preserved against misinterpretation, loss, or misuse. Only careful observation, patience, and symbolic literacy allow full understanding. Some manuscripts contain references to known Templar treasures, relics, or sacred objects, while details are cryptic. Annotations suggest locations, protective measures, or symbolic principles guiding preservation. These references may connect directly to Atlantic sites, implying that manuscripts functioned as both record and instruction for safeguarding knowledge across continents. The manuscript's preservation over centuries is remarkable. Surviving pages reflect careful handling, duplication, and concealment. Hidden marginalia, interleaved pages, and coded diagrams suggest foresight, planning, and a deep commitment to safeguarding knowledge. The Templars' emphasis on layered secrecy ensured that even if portions were lost, remaining fragments could guide future generations. Observation is key to decoding these texts. Scholars have noted correlations between symbols, landscape features, and architectural patterns. Triangular arrangements, star sequences, and spiral motifs appear repeatedly across manuscripts, European sites, and Atlantic locations. The consistency of these patterns suggests deliberate encoding rather than coincidence, indicating a coherent system of knowledge preservation. Some theorists suggest that manuscripts also contain historical memory, references to voyages, distant lands, and hidden settlements may preserve knowledge of pre-Columbian Atlantic exploration. The Templars, skilled in observation, mathematics, and secrecy, could have recorded these journeys in symbolic form, ensuring that information survived persecution, loss, or natural decay. The challenge lies in interpretation. Manuscripts are fragmentary, coded, and multidimensional. Symbols may carry multiple meanings, diagrams may overlap spiritual, practical, and navigational guidance. Yet careful study, cross-referencing with architecture, landscape markers, and Atlantic sites reveals a network of connections. Observation, patience, and symbolic literacy remain essential to unlocking the manuscript's secrets. Consider the possibility that Oak Island, Rosslyn Chapel, and Nova Scotia functioned as nodes in a larger system of encoded guidance. Manuscripts, architectural symbols, and landscape markers together form a network linking Europe and North America. Knowledge preserved in ink, stone, and earth creates a multi-dimensional map, accessible only to those trained to decode its layers. Even minor details, the placement of a symbol, the orientation of a diagram, or the repetition of a motif may hold significance. Researchers and explorers must observe patterns, consider context, and correlate multiple sources to reveal hidden instructions. The manuscript's complexity mirrors the Templars' approach to secrecy, blending observation, patience, and intellectual rigor. Ultimately, Templar manuscripts embody the interplay of secrecy, preservation, and guidance. They encode knowledge of navigation, hidden treasures, sacred relics, and architectural principles. Symbols, geometry, and numeric codes create a multi-dimensional system linking Europe to the Atlantic, Oak Island, and Nova Scotia. Each page, mark, and diagram invites observation, interpretation, and discovery, preserving knowledge across centuries and continents. As we turn the delicate pages, tracing symbols, numbers, and diagrams, we sense a continuity with the landscape, architecture, and hidden sites of the New World. The manuscripts, like Rosslyn Chapel or the Money Pit, are both guide and challenge. They require patience, symbolic literacy, and careful observation, rewarding the seeker with a glimpse of Templar ingenuity, secrecy, and the enduring pursuit of hidden knowledge. The encoded wisdom in ink and vellum reminds us that Templar treasures were never solely material. Knowledge, observation, and secrecy were as precious as gold or relics. Manuscripts connect Europe to the Atlantic, symbolically and practically, offering guidance for those capable of decoding their layers. They are a bridge across oceans, centuries, and mysteries, preserving a legacy that continues to inspire curiosity, exploration, and wonder. In the quiet forests and clearings of North America, some researchers have identified patterns that suggest more than random settlement or chance placement. Stone arrangements, clearings, and markers align with celestial bodies, sacred numbers, and geometric principles reminiscent of European Templar practices. These alignments, often subtle and overlooked, hint at knowledge of astronomy, geometry, and symbolic preservation. The concept of the Venus families, star-based patterns guiding settlement and ritual, becomes central to understanding the possible Templar influence on the New World. Imagine standing in a clearing at dawn. The first light touches the trees, illuminating stones arranged in a subtle spiral. From certain vantage points, alignments point to the rising of Venus, the solstice sun, or a distant star on the horizon. The observer senses intentionality, a deliberate orchestration of natural features and human craftsmanship. Each stone, each clearing, each line in the earth contributes to a hidden map, readable only to those trained in sacred geometry and celestial observation. The Templars were masters of sacred geometry, integrating proportion, symmetry, and cosmic alignment into their architecture and designs. From Rosslyn Chapel to European fortifications, geometric principles guided construction, ceremonial spaces, and symbolic instruction. In the New World, these principles may have been carried across the Atlantic, informing the placement of markers, clearings, and hidden sites connected to treasure, ritual, or preservation. Venus, often referred to as a guiding star in Templar and European mystical traditions, plays a unique role. Alignments with Venus may indicate dates, seasons, or celestial cues for action. Certain clearings in North America appear intentionally oriented toward the rise or setting of Venus on specific dates, suggesting knowledge of astronomy and a system for marking time, guiding exploration, or designating sacred spaces. Some researchers have mapped clusters of stones, clearings, and earthworks, noting recurring geometric patterns, triangles, spirals, and interlocking circles. These patterns echo European Templar symbolism, suggesting continuity of practice and instruction. When combined with celestial observation, the arrangements become a multi-dimensional system of guidance, linking observation, geometry, and symbolic preservation. Consider Oak Island in this context. While the Money Pit remains its central mystery, surrounding markers, landscape features, and natural clearings may align with geometric principles and celestial bodies. Observation from multiple vantage points could reveal lines, patterns, or markers invisible from casual examination. The combination of landscape, architecture, and engineered features suggests intentional placement guided by sacred geometry. The Venus family's concept extends beyond single points of observation. Groups of markers, stones, or clearings may create patterns reflecting celestial cycles, mathematical ratios, or symbolic sequences. Each family forms a network, a constellation on Earth mirroring patterns in the sky. Observation and interpretation require patience, symbolic literacy, and awareness of both natural and engineered features. Star-aligned sites are not merely markers, they encode knowledge. Alignments may indicate safe passages, locations of hidden caches, or ceremonial sites. Combined with Templar manuscripts and European symbolic instruction, these alignments form a bridge between continents, linking observation, geometry, and encoded guidance. The stars themselves become part of a navigational and symbolic system. The interplay of Earth and sky is central to understanding these sites. Stones, clearings, and constructed markers reflect solar, lunar, and planetary cycles. Creating a multi-dimensional calendar, observers trained in geometry and astronomy could interpret these markers to plan voyages, mark significant dates, or locate hidden sites. The network is both practical and symbolic, blending knowledge, ritual, and guidance across continents. Some sites in Nova Scotia, New England, and other regions exhibit striking patterns, spirals, interlocking triangles, and precise geometric arrangements suggest intentional construction rather than coincidence. When analyzed in conjunction with celestial events, these sites reveal a deeper level of design, connecting observation, geometry, and symbolic instruction in ways that mirror European Templar practices. The Venus families may also serve as mnemonic devices. Patterns on the ground correspond to celestial events, guiding memory and observation. Travelers or initiates trained in these systems could use the arrangements to navigate, measure time, or locate hidden objects. The combination of Earth-based markers and sky-based observation forms a comprehensive system of knowledge preservation. Consider the integration of sacred geometry into practical engineering, stone arrangements, earthworks, and engineered clearings may serve both symbolic and functional purposes. Spiral designs could indicate directions, distances, or sequences of excavation. Triangular alignments may mark celestial events or reference hidden deposits. Each geometric element carries layered meaning, bridging spiritual, symbolic, and practical instruction. The repetition of patterns across sites suggests intentional transmission of knowledge. Similar motifs appear in European Templar architecture, manuscripts, and symbolic instruction, implying that methods and principles were preserved and adapted. In the New World, the continuity reinforces the theory of a transatlantic network guided by geometry, astronomy, and symbolic literacy. Observation and interpretation remain key. Patterns may be subtle, requiring precise measurement, careful observation of the horizon, and awareness of celestial cycles. The network of Venus families, star-aligned sites, and geometric markers demands patience and symbolic literacy. Each observer becomes part of a long chain of interpretation, connecting continents, centuries, and hidden knowledge. Artifacts found in proximity to star-aligned sites further support the theory. Stones with carvings, fragments of symbolic objects, and traces of engineered earthworks indicate deliberate activity. These finds may correspond to ceremonial use, hidden deposits, or guidance systems for explorers. Combined with geometric alignment, the artifacts become part of a broader system connecting observation, ritual, and practical instruction. The integration of sacred geometry with celestial observation reflects Templar methods of encoding knowledge. In Europe, architecture, manuscripts, and fortifications exhibit similar systems. Triangles, spirals, stars, and interlocking circles recur in European sites and appear mirrored in North American arrangements. The network may serve as a bridge across oceans, encoding practical guidance, ritual instruction, and symbolic knowledge. In a multi-dimensional system, even small details, the spacing of stones, the orientation of clearings, or the angles of earthworks may carry significance. Observation from multiple perspectives, across seasons and celestial cycles, reveals patterns invisible to casual examination. The Templars' mastery of geometry, observation, and symbolic encoding ensures that knowledge is preserved, accessible only to those trained in interpretation. The Venus families may also encode time. Alignments with Venus, the solstice sun, or lunar cycles could mark significant dates for ritual, navigation, or excavation. Observers trained to read these markers could coordinate activities with precision, linking celestial events to earthly tasks. The network becomes a multi-dimensional calendar guiding action, observation, and interpretation. Connections to manuscripts, European architecture, and Atlantic sites suggest continuity. Geometric patterns, celestial alignment, and symbolic markers form a cohesive system. Oak Island, Rosslyn Chapel, and other nodes function as part of a transatlantic network of observation, guidance, and preservation. Knowledge, ritual, and practical instruction intersect in these star-aligned arrangements. The endurance of these patterns across centuries demonstrates the Templars' foresight. By encoding knowledge in geometry, celestial observation, and landscape, the order ensured preservation against natural decay, persecution, and human interference. The Venus families, spirals, and interlocking designs function as living maps, guiding observant seekers across time, space, and continents. Ultimately, sacred geometry and star-aligned sites reveal a network of encoded knowledge connecting Europe and North America. Venus families serve as both mnemonic devices and navigational markers integrating observation, ritual, and practical instruction. Oak Island, Nova Scotia, and other sites are nodes in this network, bridging continents and centuries through layered, deliberate design. As we stand in a clearing at dawn, tracing stones, observing alignments, and noting geometric patterns, we glimpse the Templars' enduring legacy. Knowledge, encoded in geometry, stars, and landscape, persists across oceans and centuries. The Venus family's guide, instruct, and preserve, inviting curiosity, observation, and discovery for those willing to see, interpret, and follow the hidden paths of history. As we arrive at the final chapter of our journey through Templar secrets, treasures, and hidden maps, we find ourselves standing at the intersection of history, legend, and speculation. Across continents and centuries, the traces of the Knights Templar have persisted, etched in stone, inked on vellum, carved into landscapes, and encoded in geometry. Oak Island, Rosslyn Chapel, the Zeno map, Venus families, and myriad symbolic markers all form a tapestry that challenges conventional narratives, inviting us to question what we think we know about the past. History often resists anomalies. Scholars have debated, dismissed, and occasionally ridiculed theories that suggest pre-Columbian Templar voyages, transatlantic networks, or hidden treasures. The evidence enigmatic, fragmentary, and circumstantial demands patience and interpretation. Yet within these fragments lies the possibility of a larger truth, that the Templars, masters of secrecy and knowledge, may have preserved and transmitted information across oceans in ways both material and symbolic. Consider Oak Island. Its money pit, flood tunnels, and layers of engineering defy simple explanation. Was it a treasure repository, a sacred storage site, or an elaborate trap designed to preserve knowledge? Each excavation reveals fragments of the past, coins, tools, and tantalizing hints of craftsmanship, yet the full story remains elusive. When viewed in conjunction with European sites, like Rosslyn Chapel, symbolic markers, and manuscripts, Oak Island becomes more than a curious anomaly. It may be part of a deliberate, transatlantic system of preservation. Rosslyn Chapel, with its intricate carvings of maize, aloe vera, geometric spirals, and celestial markers, bridges Europe and the New World. Patrons like the Sinclairs ensured the order's knowledge persisted in stone, encoding geometry, astronomy, and spiritual instruction. These carvings, subtle and deliberate, may contain clues that connect directly to Atlantic voyages and hidden sites, forming nodes in a symbolic network spanning continents. The Zeno map further extends the narrative. Its detailed depiction of North Atlantic islands, peninsulas, and waterways challenges conventional timelines of exploration. Could these lines represent earlier voyages, guided by Templar knowledge of navigation, celestial observation, and geometric principles? The map may encode safe routes, hidden settlements, or markers of treasure information accessible only to those trained in the symbolic language of the Order. Sacred geometry and Venus families illustrate how the Templars may have encoded knowledge. In the natural world, stone arrangements, clearings, and alignments in North America reflect geometric ratios, celestial cycles, and symbolic instruction. These networks of markers may have guided observation, navigation, ritual, or the placement of hidden caches. The repetition of patterns, triangles, spirals, interlocking circles across continents suggests continuity and deliberate preservation. Templar manuscripts remain central to the story. Codified symbols, geometric diagrams, numeric sequences, and celestial references may contain guidance for voyages, treasure locations, or ritual instruction. The manuscripts layered encoding ensured that knowledge could survive persecution, decay, and human interference. When combined with architectural symbols and landscape markers, they form a multi-dimensional network of guidance and preservation. Modern academic resistance often emphasizes the lack of definitive proof. Skeptics cite anachronisms, fragmentary evidence, or the difficulty of distinguishing coincidence from design. Yet the persistence of patterns, alignments, and symbolic continuity across sites challenges dismissive interpretations. The Templars' mastery of secrecy means that evidence may never be fully conclusive, and the very act of decoding may require the combination of observation, intuition, and symbolic literacy. The emotional and intellectual risks for researchers are significant. Pursuing theories that challenge accepted history invites skepticism, critique, and sometimes ridicule. Yet curiosity, persistence, and careful observation reveal threads connecting the money pit, Rosslyn Chapel, the Zeno map, Venus families, and other sites. Each thread adds weight to the possibility that the Templars' legacy extends across oceans and centuries, preserved in both material and symbolic forms. Oak Island, in particular, exemplifies the intersection of legend and evidence. Layers of engineering, hidden chambers, and repeated discoveries hint at intentionality, craftsmanship, and purpose. The island's complex features flood tunnels, stone markers, and deep shafts mirror European engineering knowledge, symbolic instruction, and geometric precision. When viewed alongside European sites and encoded manuscripts, Oak Island emerges as a tangible node in a broader network, bridging continents, time, and knowledge. Rosslyn Chapel's carvings provide another dimension. Spirals, stars, and maze carvings may encode principles, distances, or alignments relevant to Atlantic sites. Its geometric proportions reflect both spiritual and practical knowledge, echoing encoded patterns observed in manuscripts. The chapel becomes a key to understanding how European Templars could have preserved knowledge for transatlantic application, forming a symbolic and practical bridge to North America. The Zeno map, often dismissed as speculative, offers tantalizing hints. Islands, peninsulas, and inlets correspond with modern geography, suggesting observation, calculation, and careful record-keeping, combined with Templar navigation expertise, geometric encoding, and symbolic literacy. The map could guide exploration, settlement, or the location of hidden treasures. The map itself becomes a coded repository, bridging observation, mathematics, and preservation. Sacred geometry and Venus families demonstrate the Templars' integration of celestial observation into earthly instruction. Alignments with Venus, the solstice sun, or distant stars may have guided ritual, navigation, or excavation. North American markers, including stone arrangements and earthworks, echo European geometric and celestial principles. These patterns form networks that are both practical and symbolic, preserving knowledge across time and space. Templar manuscripts remain the linchpin of interpretation. Codified symbols, numeric sequences, geometric diagrams, and celestial references encode guidance for observation, navigation, and ritual. These texts function as multidimensional maps, bridging Europe and the New World, preserving knowledge for those capable of decoding it. Each symbol, sequence, and diagram invites observation, reflection, and patient study. Together, these threads Oak Island, Rosslyn Chapel, Zeno maps, sacred geometry, Venus families, and manuscripts form a complex tapestry. Knowledge, secrecy, and preservation intersect, creating a network that challenges conventional understanding of history. The Templars' careful encoding ensures that even centuries later, observant seekers can trace patterns, interpret symbols, and uncover hidden connections. Modern research continues to explore these mysteries. Archaeologists, historians, and amateur researchers examine landscape markers, manuscripts, and artifacts, seeking correlations and hidden meaning. Observation, patience, and symbolic literacy remain central to interpretation. Each discovery adds a piece to a puzzle that spans continents, centuries, and disciplines. revealing the Templars' enduring commitment to secrecy, preservation, and knowledge. Ultimately, the question remains, were the Templars' hidden treasures and maps a myth, or do they reflect a reality deliberately obscured for centuries? The evidence, while fragmentary and circumstantial, suggests a legacy of encoded knowledge, transatlantic exploration, and hidden treasures preserved in stone, ink, and earth. The Order's mastery of secrecy, geometry, and symbolic instruction challenges observers to look, interpret, and follow. The journey through these mysteries invites reflection. History, legend, and speculation intertwine, creating a narrative that is both compelling and elusive. The Templars' hidden treasures may never be fully revealed, yet the pursuit itself offers insight into human ingenuity, persistence, and the enduring power of curiosity. Oak Island, Rosslyn Chapel, the Zeno map, and the Venus families together form a web of intrigue that continues to captivate explorers, researchers, and dreamers alike. And so, as we close this exploration, we are reminded that the Templars' legacy is not only in gold, relics, or hidden chambers. It is in the patterns, symbols, and encoded knowledge they left behind. It is in the geometric arrangements, the celestial alignments, and the subtle markers that span continents. It is in the manuscripts, the maps, and the enduring human curiosity that drives us to seek, observe, and imagine. The story of the Templars' hidden treasures is ultimately a story of continuity across time, space, and human imagination. It reminds us that history is rarely complete, that mysteries persist, and that the traces of a determined, secretive, and brilliant order can continue to guide, inspire, and challenge us centuries later. Perhaps the treasures are not solely material, but intellectual, symbolic, and spiritual. Perhaps the true reward lies in observation, interpretation, and the journey of discovery itself. The Templars' maps, symbols, and encoded knowledge endure, inviting us to explore, reflect, and wonder. And in that quiet contemplation, standing at the edge of the money pit, tracing Rosslyn Chapel's carvings, or studying the Zeno map's lines, we participate in the centuries-old pursuit of hidden knowledge. The Templars' secret network, spanning Europe and the New World, reminds us that history is alive, layered, and evermore.